So we get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Welcome to Uforia Chronicles Shockwave Radio. Today I'm joined with my co-host, Mr. Charlie Kundalini. Kundalini, Canada. Kundalini. Charlie Kundalini.
Thank you very much, James.
So I just want to say hello, or we just want to say hello to all our BitChute subscribers, where all the Uforia Chronicles podcast shows, archives, and much more can be found. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe, because we hate YouTube. We got off YouTube because it's a corrupt platform, and we're on BitChute. So we need more subscribers. Anyway, we can also be found on Uforia Chronicles Facebook group and MeWe group. It's a private Facebook group, but don't let that scare you. It's private because we don't want any government spooks on the platform. And please also consider a little donation for Ascension Radio. Whatever it is that you have in your hearts. If you can donate $1 or $2 or more, that'd be greatly appreciated. It helps the radio station. We are we're not live. This is a pre-record, everybody. It's Friday, May 29th. A couple of days after the riots, Minnesota there, and Atlanta's happening today. Atlanta, the CNN studios got destroyed. Well, I'm not a big fan of CNN anyway, but they're down to one studio now, CNN, right? They only have one studio, and fits me just fine. Also, there was in Minnesota, the precinct, it was the 3rd precinct. I wasn't sure what they were saying about 3rd precinct, but apparently that was a police station that got burned to the ground. So that's what happened in Minnesota. And hopefully things quiet down a bit. But you know what? When there's corruption in government and police, enough is enough. The people have to speak, and the people have to do what they need to do. Just like 1776, ladies and gentlemen, right? They had to do what they had to do, and the Boston Tea Party and stuff like that, right? So this is what it all is, right? And this is where we're in right now. Anyway, I don't condone violence, but I don't condone corruption of political, governmental, and police either. Anyway, now, Charlie Kundalini. Welcome, Charlie. I'd like to have you say the announcements that you have.
Sure. Thank you very much, James.
You're welcome.
First, I want to thank you for putting me on the show here again. And I would like to introduce a UFO magnet of Canada, the one and only Paul Shishi. I believe he'll be coming in on the radio. James, you know him as well.
Yep.
And also, Paul Shishi also has filmed these snakes in the sky just as well as Jeff has. And it'd be great to hear them compare their notes.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and was it CNN station that just got burned?
Well, they got smashed. They basically we got destroyed, right? So there's last I seen about an hour and a half ago on the live feed from Atlanta. The building was totally more or less smashed. All the windows were smashed, and there was a couple police in there, and police are surrounding everywhere. And but it's not going to be open anytime soon. I don't think the workers would be wanting to go in there anyway. It's that much destroyed, right?
Yeah. I call CNN "See No News."
Yeah, well, that's the one that Trump always said is fake news, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
They said the CIA, they said CNN was actually started by the CIA, right? So there you go, right? Anyway, good luck to them. Anyway, so now I'd like to welcome to everybody Jeff Woolwine. And I'm going to read out a little bio on this guy. Jeff Woolwine is one of the premier videographer, skywatcher, and UFO hunters in the United States of America. He was the first person to prove that the Hohokam Indians carved UFO sightings hundreds of years ago in the mountains around the Valley of Phoenix, Arizona, also known as the Valley of the Sun. He is also the first to prove in 2005 that not all UFOs are crafts, but in fact they are living beings in the sky. Hence the snakes in the sky and the other stuff that he gets on film. His videos and research has captivated the UFO world and changed the way to understand UFOs through rock art and his UFO sightings and investigations. Jeff has written a book on the subject and is available now through What the Phoenix Lights Really Are According to Petroglyphs and Lost History of Phoenix, plus 15 years of research and hiking the mountains around the Valley of Phoenix, Arizona. And filming UFOs in the valley skies, he has possible explanations and theories on what UFOs are, and that's included in his book, which you can buy. I'll have the links in the video, ladies and gentlemen, so you can buy this book. Jeff has been a member of cable shows, radio shows, and was premiered in the pilot of the UFO Hunters show, and then later as it aired on the History Channel. At the same time, the UFO Hunter had said that his discoveries was too much for the public to understand. Charlie, you and me were talking about that earlier on. Jeff has been watching UFOs for 20 years now and in the beginning of his UFO research, UFO hunters thought it was nothing more than a theory to the UFO world. But his work evolved and UFO researchers continue to study his work, and they have now come to understand that his theories are possible facts throughout the years. Now, today, other UFO researchers are using his works and theories as possible answers for UFOs, but Jeff Woolwine was the first to bring this topic and prove it's true to the UFO community. Now, I'd like to just say, just after reading the bio there, you're absolutely right. Okay, so here I am, James Borg, Uforia Chronicles. First UFO sighting, 9 years old. All right, first ghost sighting, again, 9 years old, 1977. And I've had multiple sightings of both throughout the years, and I'm a paranormal researcher as well. And so when I started seeing these snakes in the sky, they blew me away because here it is, I've never seen something, right? This is something I'm seeing on video. Somebody else is capturing, and I'm going, whoa, I never seen that, right? So when you don't see things for the first time, you take notice of it. Hey, it's like, wow, hey, it's something interesting, something new, right? So I remembered seeing them in Mexico first, and then I seen them in Phoenix. And going back in 2005, all I remember was seeing them, but I don't know who actually took the film footage. Now you're about to talk to the person that took the film footage. His name's Jeff Woolwine, right? And as a UFO researcher and experiencer, as you can see, there's behind me, got pictures here these are Ken Klingbeil's pictures, and it's documented. A lot of people take pictures and videos. But what got me was these things that Jeff sees, they're actually morphing, right? So when something morphs and evolves into something else, it's got even more interest in there. It's like, whoa, what's that now, right? So the level of excitement and curiosity just hits a peak level at 10. And I've always thought when I seen the first snakes in the sky, I said, no, that's alive, man. That's not a UFO, right? Because it looks like this big giant snake, right? And then I heard the stories too of Quetzalcoatl in Maya, Mexico, right? The so-called feathered serpent being, right? And right. Now I never made the connection between the petroglyphs and the snakes till just basically a few weeks ago when I met Jeff for the first time. Jeff joined Uforia Chronicles. He punched a couple of links on his videos there, and I was like, wow, right? I said, I got to interview this guy, right? This guy's legit. This guy's the real deal here. He's a real McCoy, right? It's like having a bottle of Jack Daniels, and it's like, it's not 80 proof now. It's like 101 proof now. It's like, whoa, right? It gets you going, right? So that's what happened. And We're going to have Paul Shishi, like Charlie was saying, on later on, because he's the only other person that I know that's seen these snakes in the sky. And that's going to be cool. Jeff and Paul can cross talk and cross examine each other and just, talk, right? Basically. So I'm going to give the option for him if Paul Shishi arrives. He said he's going to be a little late. And if he shows up, that's what we're going to do. So without any further ado, Uforia Chronicles Shockwave Radio through Ascension Radio would like to welcome for the very first time Jeff Woolwine. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So, Jeff, why don't we give everybody a background on you? You were, because you said you had UFO sightings when you were a kid, and basically tell everybody how you got involved in ufology.
Wow, this has been a pretty much a lifelong journey here with these things that we see in the skies today. But I really didn't start researching them until 2004. But, I'm a native to Phoenix, Arizona. I was born and raised there. I've traveled and lived other places in the United States, but I've always came back to this desert because this is where my home is. But I can remember, being a kid and playing, catch football with my dad, and there'd be an orb in the sky, and I asked my dad what was that, and he didn't have a clue on what it was, and then, we would see lights in the skies. I was living in the heart of Phoenix, and it was like, I didn't know it then. I do now, because later on I went back and lived in that same area. We'll talk about that later. But, when I was a kid, I'm living in this area. It was like a hot spot for these entities in the sky. And I remember, going to school, and one of my friends, he was a little Indian boy. And I was like, hey, did you see that light last night? I was like, wasn't that cool? Because it was right there, And he's like, oh, yeah. He goes, my grandfather says that those lights live in the mountains. And he points on the west side of Phoenix, Arizona to the White Tank Mountains. And, at the time you're a kid, you just kind of blow it off, not really thinking about it. But I remember what he said back then. Well, growing up, I'm constantly seeing these things in the sky. It didn't matter where I was going, where I was living at, I would continue to see these things in the sky. And so it just made me wonder, what the hell is really going on here, And so in 2001, I moved to New York. And I was there during the 9/11. I was about 150 miles away. I was in a small town. And I remember, during 9/11 happened, I used to walk my kids back and forth to school, and we would see the smoke. And, I was always, telling my kid, because I was a single dad. And I would always tell him, look, if you ever see anything in the sky, come and tell me, because there's things flying around here that I'm trying to figure out. If you ever see anything weird, come and tell me. Well, during New York's 9/11, a few short days after that, there's a no-fly zone going on in New York. Not a single airplane was allowed to be flying. Nothing was supposed to be flying there. And one day, my son
that was actually a worldwide thing, Jeff.
Yeah.
Go on.
Absolutely. And so my son's outside playing, and then he comes running to the window. Dad, a UFO. So I go running outside, and I looked up, and sure enough, I see these 4 silver spheres, and they're connected together like the kids' jumping jacks. You bounce the ball on the ground, pick up the jacks before you can catch the ball. But that's basically what it looked like. And going counterclockwise above our heads, about 1,000 feet up. And we're just sitting there, just kind of speechless. And my son had his friend there, and the little boy was like, oh, it's probably an airplane or something. And I'm going, no, that's not an airplane, man. That is something, It is going over our heads, and then all of a sudden I see this white orb, or the white silver kind of looking orb, and it went into join with these jacks, and I lost vision of it, in the trees. And so, that kicked it off. That was it. I was seeing UFOs in Phoenix, before I moved to New York. Then I moved to New York. Now I'm seeing these things in the sky, and, um,
Whereabouts in New York did you live, Jeff?
I lived in Corning, New York, upstate New York. Yeah, where the famous Corning glass is. And so, I'm like, dude, I wanted to investigate these things. More and more I'm seeing them. I want to find out what's going on. And that's when it dawned on me. Hey, what the hell am I doing in New York? I need to go back to Phoenix. That's where the Phoenix Lights occurred at 1997, February or March 13, 1997. All these sightings are happening in Phoenix. What the hell am I doing in New York, dude? I need to get back to Phoenix. So in 2004, I moved back to the Valley of the Sun. Now, this was like at the beginning of the summer of 2004. Now, I remember watching a news story on how a news cameraman, the helicopter, filmed some lights on the west side of the valley. Now, I knew this was the time to go out there and hunt them. I bought cameras, I bought tripods. I was, going on a quest. I'm going on a hunt. I'm not living in Phoenix just to live anymore. And I'm going on a hunt, and I'm tracking down these Phoenix lights. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. And so I noticed that the lights were back. Now, years before, I remember seeing a sky watcher on the east side of Phoenix, Arizona. Now, this area was known as Mesa, Arizona. It's right outside of Phoenix. And he was seeing the lights on the east side of the valley. And he was making the news. His name was Tom King, and so I remember, he was catching a lot of them out there on the east side. So I just took a hunch or took a gamble, now's the time to go see him. So I'm going to move. I'm going to hit Mesa and see what I can see. Well, so I go to Mesa, and it didn't take me long until, I got an apartment. It didn't take long until I started seeing these lights. Now, I kind of knew the direction on where to look. I knew to look kind of like southeast, because that was seemed to be the hot spots there, right on the east side of what's now called South Mountain. And so that's where these lights took place at, on the east side.
Yep.
And so while I'm there, I see these lights, right? Okay, so two orange amber lights just seemingly like appeared in the sky. Me and my son were waiting just after sunset. I'm up on the second story balcony. I got my camera ready. I'm just sitting, just watching the skies. Well, lo and behold, two orange amber lights appeared in front of us, about a couple miles away, and they were going west. They were going towards South Mountain. And while another orange amber light was over here to the left of me. These lights would move to the mountain and then disappear. Then two more would have magically appear in the sky, move towards the mountain, and then disappear. Well, that went on for a few times until finally that one orange light over here, that one finally went away. Well, that was like cool. That was my very first, time I got something on film, And so I was ecstatic. It wasn't a very good video, but at least I got it, And so the next couple of nights, we're going out to the balconies, wanted to see more. We didn't see any more. So I figured, I got to get there. I got to get higher, because you're living in a city. You got trees, you got buildings. You can't see the sky, man. So I had to go somewhere where I can see the whole valley. Well, I came across this college, Mesa Community College, and they had a set of bleachers, and it was about, good 100 feet off the ground. And this bleachers was, to see the football games and the track meets for the college and things like that. So I climbed up on the bleachers and I overlooked and I could see everything. I could see South Mountain was right there, a lot closer to me now. I could see all of Phoenix. That was a place where I was going to sit and watch for these lights. Well, it didn't take very long, within a week or so. I was very persistent. You have to go out there every night. I was very persistent. I went out there and I set up my tripod and I watched. Well, sure enough, I started seeing these lights in the skies. And I'm gonna show you here. I'm gonna show you this video real quick.
Okay, cool.
So this is me up on the bleachers, and I'm watching these lights on the east side of South Mountain. So I must have caught, I mean, this whole summer of 2004, I'm seeing these lights on the east side of the mountain. And I never saw them to the west again, right? Because I first saw them, you know, they're appearing in the sky, they're moving towards south. I never saw them over there again. You know, so basically they were showing me where to go. They knew I was here in town. They knew I was out to hunt them down, and they helped me along. They were pointing the way on where to go. That's the only conclusion that I can come up with. You know, looking back at all of this journey I did, you know, that's the only, they knew what I was about to do, you know, and so I followed them, and I sat up here on these bleachers the whole summer, continuing to watch these lights, man. Now I got like these lights here. Look how they're just motionless. Now this is in the city, right? This is at the college. South Mountain is to the right of this valley here, or of these lights. And I'm just gonna speed it up because we don't got a lot of time.
Okay, but we got a lot of time more.
Here we go. So this is a college, all right? There's like the auditorium there. So, you know, these lights are sitting right there in the sky.
And that's in Mesa, Arizona, shot. Correct?
Mesa, Arizona, right. They're right over, if you look kind of closely, then, well, I'm kind of zooming in now, but they're right over a major power plant. We'll get into that here a little bit later.
Okay. Nuclear power plant?
A power plant. A power plant that's boiled down into the fault lines.
Okay.
So let me get into this. So I don't know what happened.
So you got fault lines in Mesa then?
Mesa, right?
Mesa. Okay, Mesa. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me get back to here.
Some of our studios, our recording studios, are in Mesa. Hey, so that's kind of cool. Quick question on the fault lines as well. Do you think wherever there's fault lines on the earth, there's more UFO sightings in the area?
Yes, and we will get into that.
Okay.
So I kind of lost you. I don't know. Can you still see me?
I could see your screen share. Yep.
Okay.
I could see you now. Yeah.
That's what happened. Okay. So I'm still getting used to this. So
that's okay. Yeah.
All right. So let's look at this sighting here real quick. So, you know, the whole summer I'm filming these lights. And I'm noticing not only am I watching these lights. I think that's the one. You see these lights now? The triangle?
Yep.
Okay, so that right there up on top, that's an airplane. Let's rewind it a bit here. That's an airplane. All right. So I'm noticing that, you know, I'm seeing these lights, but these airplanes are watching the lights also, okay? And what they were doing is they would climb up about 2,000 to 3,000 feet up into the sky, and they would circle. And as soon as these lights would appear in the exact same spot, then these airplanes would zoom in after them, right? And as soon as these airplanes got within a mile radius of these lights would disappear. The airplanes would come in and circle that area for a little while, and you know, then the airplanes would go back, climb a few thousand feet, and circle and wait. And here come the lights again. So it was a cat and mouse game the whole summer of 2004.
Wow.
And right, I'm getting great formations of these lights.
Yeah, they look like a triangular formation there, right?
Right, absolutely. You know, so you know, there's a lot of people saying, a craft happened back in March 13th. 1997, you know, and so I'm thinking, you know, spaceships, little green guys, you know, I'm thinking technology, right?
See, now looking at that, I'd be saying, okay, am I looking at I'd be thinking it's a TR-3B. Now, having said that, because I've seen the TR-3B before, sightings of it. Now, the date on there is August 19th, 2004. My sighting was 2007. Right? Okay. So that was 3 years before that. And my sighting in 2007 nobody knew what a TR3B was still at that time. News of the TR3B started coming in out around 2009-ish, right? So that's kind of funny. But the triangular formation kind of looks like a TR3B at this point. But go on.
Right. So look how they just all disappear.
There you go. Yeah, it just disappeared. Perfect.
Right.
Yep.
You see that?
Yep.
They just disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was like that the whole summer of 2004. I mean, I was getting lightning bolt formations. I mean, this one was crazy.
Lightning bolt formations, you're saying? Lightning bolt?
Yeah, let me show you here. Let me get back into this.
All right.
Yeah, I'm getting all kinds of formations here. And let's see. You see that? Is that a lightning bolt?
I see it. Yep.
There
Looks like 3 dots, now 4 dots.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm getting like all kinds of formations almost every night. Okay, and look how they're just sitting in the sky there, right?
And they're changing color too, red, green, yellow.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. They're right in the exact same spot almost every night. Now I noticed that there was a pattern to it, and so once you figure out their pattern, then you can pretty much predict on when they're going to come back.
Wow.
And because like 1 week I'd only see 1, maybe 2 sightings that whole week, and then the next week, oh my God, I'd get at least 8 or 9 sightings that whole week, and then the next week I'd only get like maybe 2 or 3. So it was like a pattern. Everything in this field, everything in this investigation comes with a pattern, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So this is one of the patterns on when they're here. All right, so they have a pattern not only when they come around, but also when they start appearing in the sky. There's always a pattern, and the pattern is there's masses of them 1 week, and then the next week they're kind of gone. Right, so I'm calling the news, right? I'm calling the news, and I'm asking, is anybody, seeing these lights? Because I got great footage. I got some of the best footage of these Phoenix lights ever.
Yeah, you do, actually.
And I have so many sightings, I'm in the right place at the right time. I got the right cameras. I'm filming these beautiful lights, let's talk about this, And so it took the news, a few weeks to get back with me. And when they did, they asked me if I'm still seeing the lights. And I said, yeah, I am. And they're like, okay, well, would you like to do, a news story? And I'm like, sure, yeah, no problem. Yeah, that'd be great. And this light here, I experimented on. Okay, so I used different filters on this light. Okay, so now we're gonna look at the night vision.
Okay, cool.
There's the night vision. That's what it looks like in night vision. And then I used this one filter called a pastel. And when I used a pastel on it, you can see it how it's like, it's a ball of energy, if you will.
Right.
It's a sphere, right? It's pulsating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I go into the pastel setting, which I'll flick it over here in a minute. See how it's just pulsating there?
Yep.
And so, they're trying to tell us that, we're seeing flares and all this crap, but clearly this is not a flare. So I ended up doing about 4 or 5 news stories that summer. And I did all the news channels. I did Channel 5, Channel 3, Channel 12, Channel 15, and Channel 10. And, the end result was that me and everybody else is seeing flares in Tucson 150 miles away from the valley. And I'm like, dude, that is crazy. There's no way we are seeing flares 150 miles away. Look at this video here. This video is shot in the city. All right. These lights are in the city, and they're huge. They're big orange amber lights, right? They're not 150 miles away. And there's no planes dropping these flares out. And it's illumination flare, right? Which means it lights up the sky, which means you would see the smoke or parachute or something like that, because that's what these flares do. They light up the skies, and they're not that big. And
Yeah.
plus, these flares don't, the flares, they don't sit there in the sky. They fall to the ground. Now here I'm using pastel.
Okay.
I'm using the pastel setting. Now you can see the regular lights right now. Here's the UFO light right there.
Wow.
And on the bottom right, that's a street lamp. Right now, notice how that one's not flickering.
Okay.
Right. So now I'm going to zoom in on the Phoenix light. And see, no one has ever done this before. No one has ever looked at these or had a chance to look at these Phoenix lights, in these type of filters. I see, you can tell on the bottom right, that's the street light. Okay, now look at that. Now you can really tell on how it's pulsating. You see that?
Big time pulsing.
Right, man. It's energy. It's energy. It's pulsating, full of energy. Now, at the time, I didn't realize this, but these lights are right over a major power plant that's bored down into the fault lines of South Mountain. That is what this South Mountain is created. And most of the mountains around Phoenix, Arizona, was created by fault lines. And fault lines generate energy. Okay. And so this power plant is bored down. This was the summer of 2004. Now, here in the desert, we use a lot of electricity to turn on, our ACs. And so we use a lot of energy, in the summers here in the desert.
Oh, for sure.
So what they did is they broadcasted on the news, and they said they're going to shut down. We have a nuclear power plant, Palo Verde power plant, about 20 to 30 miles out of the valley. And that power plant, that nuclear facility, powers Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and I think parts of California. So that's a major nuclear power plant. Now, I have seen these lights over nuclear power plants before. I've seen photographs of these lights. And so I know that these lights, are attracted to energy spots. So it just so happens, looking back at everything, I think that the government knew that these lights were due to return. And when they do, they're going to be absorbing whatever energy they can find at that time. And if they're going to hit that nuclear power plant, then what's to say they might cause a breach accident or a core meltdown? So what they're going to do is they're going to tell the public they're going to shut down this nuclear power plant for construction works, for updating, and they're going to turn on these other electrical power plants around the Valley of the Sun, to help us, for the energy, right? And when they turned on that electrical power plant out there on the east side of South Mountain, it attracted these lights to these electrical power plants, right? So it's not just regular electrical power plants, it's major ones that are bored down into the fault lines like this one is out there today. And later on, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So,
okay, I got a little question now too, and Charlie could probably pipe in there too. Charlie lives actually a lot closer to it than I do, so I'll give you a little demographics here. So I'm on the west side of Toronto in a suburb called Mississauga, but I'm also closest to the Oakville border. So I'm way across Lake Ontario. Actually, if I look at Lake Ontario and I look towards my left, I go right through a bay and I can see Toronto, right? Which is about maybe, I don't know, 15 miles away, if that. Now, Charlie lives on the opposite side, on the east end of Toronto, a place called Scarborough, nearest to, believe it or not, another power plant, right? There's, Charlie, is there a Rouge River plant, or is that just a nuclear?
Yeah, it's really interesting. What I've noticed is that a lot of nuclear power plants are actually built on fault lines and valleys and mountains, and I believe that they were put there specifically because if they wanted to end the world, let's say, for instance, and I know the Anunnaki culture, they always they reach that certain point and they destroy civilization and then they start all over again. So it's just a theory that because most nuclear power plants are built on these fault lines. If they were to detonate them all simultaneously, they could destroy quite a bit of the surface of the earth, and it could pulverize whole areas. For instance, a desert. Usually, if there's a desert, it's a sign that there was a nuclear activity there. I know in the Sahara Desert, there's a huge hole in the ground. And that's also where the pyramids were. And during the time of the pyramids, that was actually a very fertile area. That was a green area. Because, you know, how can you build massive structures and have massive people live in an area if there's no food and water?
Right.
Right. And I know in India too, where they have deserts there, there's these talks about these nuclear explosions. Before the Ice Age, North America would have been populated, and there would have been civilizations there. I heard they had some massive civilizations there, but of course, when the flood happened and the Ice Age, probably the same time, there was the flood, went over the North Pole, and then all that fresh water came down, and the glaciers just pulverized all the civilization.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, Phoenix has the same type of story, and we're going to get into that here in a minute. So
Cool.
let's talk about, you know, the 1997 Phoenix lights.
Right on. Yeah, you were there. Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, you know, I was in the valley, and let's look at the story. The story says that these lights went over the valley, but let's look at the video. Okay, let's examine this video. Right, these are the only videos that we have of March 13th, 1997, because there were skywatchers such as Tom King, okay, who was ready to videotape these lights in 1997 because he was seeing lights nights before. So he was ready for them, all right? He was ready for anything to happen. And when these lights appeared on the west side of South Mountain, now it may look like it's over the city, but it's not. This is not downtown Phoenix. This is on the far west side of the valley of Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, and so Tom King was there filming these lights. Now, my point is, if anything would have flown over Phoenix going 8 miles an hour, okay, then why is it that a handful of people can film lights so far across the way from the valley, but not one person can pick up a camera on a craft going over Phoenix, Arizona at 8 miles an hour? This makes no sense. I have been researching the Phoenix lights for over 20 years now, and I cannot find one credible evidence, photograph, video, anything of anything going over the city. The only thing we have are videos as this, the only lights that we see. Now, if they are not going over the city, okay, what are they doing? They are appearing in an arc, not a boomerang craft, but an arc, okay? Now, basically what they're doing, they're on the west side of South Mountain, and they are linking themselves to another mountain on the Indian reservation called the Australia Mountains. And Australia in Spanish means star mountain. Isn't that interesting? So these lights are right on the west side of South Mountain, okay? A fault line, okay? Energy spot. So basically, they're absorbing the energy there. Now, there are conflicting reports saying that these lights went over Arizona. Well, the reason why people say that is because these lights are bouncing. They're absorbing one energy spot to the next energy spot to the next energy spot. Okay, so they're at these mountains up there on the top of Arizona. Then they came and visited Phoenix, Arizona to absorb the energy there. And then they went on to the lower of Arizona to absorb energy there. Now look, see how they disappear? They're disappearing there, okay? Did anything go over the city? No, nothing went over the city. What I have found is people who are trying to sell movies, trying to sell books, okay, trying to exploit something that they really don't understand. Okay. And another reason why is because, you know, um, the only thing that they really can comprehend right now is technology, is spaceships. You know, little gray guys controlling these things. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that spaceships exist. Okay, so I have seen some things in the sky
Well, so have I.
that
Yeah,
could
go on.
resemble a craft. All right, so I'm open to that. The scientists have said that there's 7 Earth-like planets out on the outreaches of our solar system. So what's to say there's some kind of advanced civilization there who was able to build a spaceship to come visit Earth? Why not? I get it. I'm open to that. But I think what the majority of the people are seeing are orbs and serpents and lights, okay? And they see these things in the sky and they automatically assume that they're spaceships. Now, I did too. I did too, until I figured out what was really going on, okay? So I remember researching or watching a TV channel on Channel 8 here in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, there was a guy there from the Pueblo Indian Art Museum, was up on South Mountain. He's a Native American medicine man and shaman, and he works for the museum for the Native Americans in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, he was up there on South Mountain, and there was a film crew up there and talking to some people. And he was showing the petroglyphs and talking about what the petroglyphs are. Okay. And one of the guys asked him, his name was Dave. One of the guys asked Dave, well, it looks like that this stick figure man is looking up at something in the sky. And Dave turned around and said, yes, that is part of some of the interpretations here, is that our ancestors probably recorded and saw things in the sky and then recorded them on the rocks here. Well, boom, that was it. So that just lit off a light in my head. We have strange lights in the sky. Now we have strange markings on the rocks out here. There has to be a connection. Now this is 10 years. This is 10 years after the 1997 Phoenix lights, okay? No one has been talking about these petroglyphs for 10 years, okay? So not even the people making these movies and selling these books saying a spaceship went over Phoenix, right? You know, so at the end of 2004, the news is telling me and telling everybody, you know, hey, you guys are seeing flares. I'm like, no way. You know, I'm researching these things. What are the key sources here? And the sources were mountains, all right? I'm seeing these things around this mountain. You know, so in 2005, I decided to move to South Mountain and exactly see what I could get, you know, find out what I can get. And also while I'm there, I'm going to explore the mountain. I'm going to hike the mountain. You know, I'm going to investigate the mountain because there's more to this story. All right. So I moved in January 2005. I moved to the mountain. And and I called up Dave. I got a hold of Dave, the guy I saw on television months before. And I was like, hey, I really didn't tell him who I was, what I was doing. You know, I just said, hey, you know, I'm doing a documentary on the petroglyphs. I saw you on Channel 8. I have a friend of mine who's going to film us. Can you take us up on the mountain and can you show us the petroglyphs and teach me the meanings? He's like, sure, no problem. So great. You know, we went up there and we spent about 3 hours up there on South Mountain. And he was going into some crazy things. He was telling me about these spirals. Now, these spirals represent doorways to the underworld for the spirits. Okay, not spaceships. He says spirits, right? And when the spirals end down in this crack, then chances are that is the doorway to the underworld where that spiral ends at that crack. If it ends completely down, then it's the ground. These spirits come up out of the ground. The doorway is the ground. All right. Now, if the spiral ends up, then there's a vortex in the sky, much like what we were looking at in the videos before on how these lights just magically appear in the sky. They sit there for a little while, then they disappear, right? There's a vortex in the sky. There's a doorway in the sky. Now, if the spiral is clockwise, it's a doorway in. If a spiral is counterclockwise, it's a doorway out. I've seen many spirals, many rock carving spirals on South Mountain where we have 2 doors, man. We got a doorway in and a doorway out. Or what happens if we have a doorway over here to go in and then a doorway for that entrance, a doorway out is over here on this side of the mountain. So we see these entities come down and look like they're landing on the mountain, right? But they're not. They're not. And he's telling me that they're going into the rocks, man. They're going into the underworld. And I'm still thinking technology, dude. I'm still thinking spaceships. I'm like, how can a big craft, right? A big spaceship get in a little crack like that, dude? It's virtually impossible, right? Until I understood what he was saying, until I saw what was really happening there on South Mountain and what these petroglyphs are really representing here. And it wasn't technology, it wasn't spirits, or excuse me, it wasn't little gray guys or spaceships. It was entities, it was spirits. It was like kind of like ghosts, if you will. These things would come down out of the sky, all right? And then as soon as they would get above the mountain, then all of a sudden you can see through them, all right? You can see through, they're like a ghost, right? And then all of a sudden they go to the mountain and they absorb themselves into the rock. They absorb themselves into the mountain. I have filmed this many times where these things come and go from the mountain. This was in 2005. And Dave was telling me, about the giants. We have this mountain out here. There's a lot of giants that are carved out here. I think I have some petroglyphs I might show you here of the giants. No, I didn't bring it. But there's many petroglyphs depicting giants, and I found evidence of somebody big and powerful picking these boulders up and making a wall out of it, dude, making a huge wall out of it, and he was telling me about the giants. Now we have a mountain out here in Phoenix, Arizona, on the west side, or on the east side, and it's called the Superstition Mountains, right? And a lot of people are mostly concerned about the Dutchman, the lost Dutchman's gold mine. Okay. So this Dutchman came over from Germany and he found all this gold. Well, when he died, he didn't tell anybody where it was. And ever since then, people have been looking for this gold mine. But that mountain is more sacred to the Indians than just gold. Okay. This mountain, it goes back to the biblical flood. All right. Now he was telling me, when the flood was coming and the bloodthirsty giants was roaming this valley, roaming the land, he says the giants didn't want to drown. So the lead giant told his people to come up on this huge boulder. And the lead giant used his powers to raise this boulder up, but the water kept coming. He used the power more to raise this boulder up, but the water was keep coming. And he raised this boulder into a huge mountain, but by then the water is still coming. And in his last bit of strength, because he didn't want his people to drown, he immortalized all of them by turning them to stone. And when that did, that's when the flood stopped. And to this day, you can look up on that mountain and you can see the stone figures of giants still there today. You can still see the giants and when they were all turned to stone. And right there at the bottom of their feet is the water line. You can see the water line where the flood had stopped. And on the bottom of that mountain, on the east side of that mountain, you can see the lead giant, and he's in a praying mode. He's like in this robe and he's praying for his people. Now, there's other giants that are on some of these mountains in Phoenix, Arizona, like Camelback Mountain. When you search Camelback Mountain in Phoenix, you can see that giant, right? Some people call it Mummy Mountain. Well, it's a giant. He was turned to stone, all right? So the history of Phoenix, we're getting into it, goes way back, way back into biblical times, if you will. So studying the spirals, let's look at the spirals. So
on that topic too, there you mentioned when you're talking about everything you're saying, I was thinking about Sedona, Arizona, which is like a few hundred miles to the north of Phoenix, and they have exactly what you're saying. They have on the mountains what look to be giant figures of heads and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely.
So and that's part of the mountain chain.
Bryce Canyon, what is it, in Utah, I believe it is.
Yeah.
There's a whole canyon full of these, stone structures with the Indians say, were turned to giants. So there's plenty of evidence that the giants were here. We have the evidence of their massive strength by cutting boulders up and placing boulders in a formation of a wall, and the structures in which, later on we'll talk about it on how the government destroyed all this stuff on South Mountain. We'll get into that a little bit later. Okay. And so we find evidence of the giants. We find petroglyphs of the giants. And we have the history of Phoenix, Arizona, that we'll get into later. I'm jumping myself about the giants and all these stone structures up there. So let's talk about the spirals real quick, right? So these spirals are energy sources. Can you see that? If I zoom in, can you see it?
Yeah.
In, right? So basically what we have here, all right, is a vortex. Okay, it's a vortex. So these beings are going down into these fault lines, going down into the rock. Okay, they're going down into a spiral. All right, it's like a tunnel, like a doorway, right? You're looking down into a tunnel. So they're going down into the bottom of the rock. Now, the Native Americans, they say that they're going to the underworld, but the scientific understanding is they're going down to the fault lines. They're going down to get the energy. All right, so they're going down into these emergence points, into these spiral doorways to hit these waves of energies and the fault lines, right? So we have the electrons and all these other things, and they conduct this energy into a type of fusion. It creates a fusion effect, all right? And so they're absorbing this energy. And this is my reason why I believe that these lights are lights in the first place, because a lot of people are asking me, well, why do these spaceships have lights on them? Is it because they need to see where they're going in space? No, that has nothing to do with, seeing where they're going in space. These lights, each light is an entity, is a living being. All right, you see 5 lights out there, you're seeing 5 living creatures, okay? And it's not some little space guy in a ship, okay? Each light is a living entity, all right? And the reason why they light up like that is because why? They're absorbing the energy, all right? So look at the fireflies, look at the lightning bugs, all right? They have a capability of lighting up. It's just them, right? It's how they were born, how they were made. Same way with these entities, okay? This is just them. They light up, especially when they're absorbing energy. All right, or when they just got done absorbing energy and you see a light going across the sky, man, they're all pumped up, man. They're happy, dude. They just got a bunch of energy, right? Yeah, they're glowing, bud. They're happy, they got all this energy, dude. That's why they're glowing the way they do in the lights, you see? So the Native Americans say that they're going down into the underworld. And the scientific explanation is they're going down into the fault lines. Now, this is the reason why, when we go back to the east side of South Mountain, we have that power plant, and why these lights in 2004 was over that power plant. They were absorbing the energy, okay? And these airplanes in the sky knew about it, all right? So in 2004, I'm watching the airplanes, okay? And then after I make the news, the airplanes are watching me now. All right. So they would hang over my apartment complex. Right. They would circle my apartment complex. They would watch me and my son and my friends go all the way to the college and hook up my cameras and get things ready to go. And sometimes those airplanes would fly right next to me. I could see the pilots, right? I don't know if they're trying to intimidate me or what, but these airplanes, they knew. After I made the news, these airplanes knew what I was doing. So not only are these airplanes watching the lights now, they're watching me now. Okay, they understand. They know where I'm sitting at. They know I'm watching the lights. So in 2005, I moved to the mountain and I started filming these things during the daytime. Now let's take a look at this entity real quick. And this is when I really started to understand, because this thing flew right by my window. As a matter of fact, this thing made video of the day on News Channel 3 in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, here we go. This thing flew right in front of me. It dropped down out of the sky, and it flies right in front of me. I am about 1.5 miles away from South Mountain on the east side. I'm on the east side of South Mountain. I'm up on a 2nd story apartment looking out my kitchen window. For 3 years, and I watched these things come and go from the mountain. I videotaped these things coming and going from South Mountain. And as I did, you know, as I did, I was slowly understanding the petroglyphs. I was starting to understand, and these things were helping me a lot by flying up next to me, telling me, look, we're not technology, dude. We're alive. These are living beings. These are living entities. Okay, look how it just flipped over on its side. Now, this is before, I mean, this is 2005, and a lot of people are saying, oh, dude, it's a drone, it's a bag, it's a balloon. Bullshit, dude, bullcrap. This is not a balloon. This is why, if this was anything explainable, why would it make video of the day asking people, you know, what it is? Because, you know, drones didn't come back into the public, wasn't available to the public until 2007. Okay, I researched all this. You know, I know drones were not available to the public until 2007. So this was 2005 when I filmed this thing. Okay, so that drones is out of the question. Plus, it flew so close. You know, you would hear the engines, you would see the propellers, blah 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 blah. Right. This is not a drone. This thing is alive. Now, when it flies by again, when it repeats itself, I'm going to pause it here so we can take a good look at this thing. I call this thing a spider. It's like a spider entity. There we go. Look at that thing. Now, the Hopis have a similar thing on Spider Woman. Okay, now the Hopis say that they learned how to weave their baskets by watching Spider Woman weave her webs in the sky. And this is how the Hopis were able to weave their baskets. They learned from Spider Woman, from this thing here, I believe. This made video of the day. This is crazy.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and actually it's changing shape. So let's see if we can go back a little bit. So it's dropping down, okay? It looks like this. Love that shot. And then as it's cruising, see how it's changing? Look how it's changing there.
Charlie, what do you think of all this?
It's very incredible.
Yeah, man.
I like it. I like the explanations as well.
Yep. All around, it's a wow, right?
See, and a lot of people will think, oh, that's a spaceship. You know, that's a craft. You know, because you know it kind of does. But look at that thing. It looks like it's got like wings on it now.
Yeah.
Look at that. Now it does look like it's got skin on it, like lizard skin. Yeah. We're gonna get into that here in a minute.
I just gotta say one thing for everybody listening on the radio. You definitely got to go on to Uforia Chronicles on BitChute.com and look at this video. And also, if you're there's two groups. There's Petroglyphs in the Sky. It's a Facebook group that Jeff runs. He's got a lot of his stuff there. And also join the Facebook groups Uforia Chronicles, because Jeff's there and he shares a lot of stuff there too. But the video that he's describing, you all got to come back and watch it, because it's one thing hearing about it on the radio, but it's another thing to actually see it. So go on, Jeff.
Yeah, that thing was crazy. You know, so, you know, I called up Channel 3 and I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe, because at that time, you know, Scott Davis, the producer, Channel 3, you know, he was just intrigued about what I was doing. And so every time I got this sighting, you know, I got sightings, I would call him up and let him know, look, I got something. And so the more and more I started watching these things, the more and more I started to understand. And it didn't, like I said, it didn't take very long. Now this next video I'm going to show, I was hiking South Mountain, and my son and I decided to take a break in this canyon. All right, now this canyon had many spirals on it. Right, so that whole canyon, what it's really talking about, when we see the spirals and it's in a canyon, right, going down the side of the mountain and the spirals, the whole canyon is a door. That is the emergence point to the underworld. That is the emergence point to the fault lines. That is the emergence point to the energy. So this canyon has major spirals up and down that canyon. And there's some other petroglyphs, you know, along with that panel. So I'm asking this, you know, the petroglyphs, hey, you know, I haven't seen you in a while. Why don't you come and see me? Now, later on during my investigations, I learned that some of these petroglyphs has the power to invoke these spirits. And this is what I accidentally did, not realizing it. You know, I invoked this flying serpent that we're about to see out of this canyon. This is the exact same place. This petroglyph is carved high up on the canyon of where I videotaped this serpent. Now it's talking about look at this petroglyph. We have two guys looking up at a flying snake.
Yep.
See that carving there?
Yep.
That's right above, high up on the mountain at the top of this canyon.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And here comes the sighting. Nope, here's another panel. Now, this panel here is interesting. Okay, this is like a it's like a serpent. It's like a half man, half serpent, right? He's got like arms and legs and a head, and he's got the tail of a serpent.
Wow.
Right? So the more we go into this panel here, look at this panel. Now look at right under him, right? We see this guy with 4 arms, okay? And he's got this pole or staff-like weapon.
Okay, yeah.
He's shooting. He is shooting at this flying serpent guy in the sky. Now we have other petroglyphs over here to the upper right. Now we know that the guys with the bows and arrows, we know that's a regular human guy, because we'll get into that here in a minute. But these are regular humans, and they're shooting at something in the sky. Now, more along this panel here to the right, we see more serpents.
Wow.
We see more serpents there. Whoops, I just messed everything up. Okay, let's try it again. All right, so.
And there's a lot of cracks in those rocks.
Well, yeah, that's natural. Those cracks, there's no spirals there. This is how we know that this particular boulder right here, it's not a doorway. But like I said before, the whole canyon with the spirals is the doorway. All right, so when we look at this panel, I have a still photograph. We probably go into that a little bit later here.
Okay.
But when you look over here to the right, you see more serpents and an orb and the coyotes looking up at these serpents. Now right here in 2005, April the 28th, this serpent came out of South Mountain. This was the exact same spot where I was talking to him at least 3 or 4 days before. Now watch this thing climb up into the sky. It kind of turns around. Look how it's turning. Right now it's moving past the radio pole there. And as soon as I get it steady on the tripod, then you can see how it's moving. But because it's moving going up, it's hard to keep the tripod steady.
Right.
But eventually I do. Here we go. So you can see on how it's moving. And then watch, you can actually see it walking in the sky. This is crazy. This thing is like, it's going east, right? And as soon as it goes within about 1,000 feet, it changes direction. It starts coming at me. It starts coming towards me. It knew where I was. It knew I was filming it. And it came right over the apartment complex.
So it's like telepathic too. Yeah.
Right. It knew what was going on. Now, okay, yeah. See, now you can see with the telephone line here on the direction that it's going. See how it's looking at the mountain? Now it's kind of looking back at me in a way it kind of looks like, right? And it's going straight up. It's going up. And pretty soon you can see on how it walks. Here we go. Now it's walking in the sky. I'm going to zoom in here. As soon as I get my bearings. Okay. Yeah, it's not walking. Okay. Now I think it is. As soon as I zoom in, here's what I'm talking about. See how it's walking? Look at that. It is in control.
Wow.
Okay. Balloons do not act like this.
Not at all.
Okay.
Yep.
This is not normal, what you are witnessing here. This is not normal. This came out of South Mountain, and this is now on its way over to my apartment complex. And this is 7 o'clock, almost 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so these things like the mornings, right? They like the mornings times and they like the afternoon times. I soon learned that these things had a pattern, all right? Had a pattern, not only in the months, all right, but the times of the days that when these things would appear. So I'm learning all this stuff from scratch. No one ever has done this ever before. No one has ever taken the time to sit by a mountain for 3.5 years and just constantly watch the mountain. Now, when I was 16, I had a motorcycle accident because a lot of people are asking me, well, dude, you got all this time on your hands. Where's the money coming from? Well, I had a motorcycle accident, okay, and I paralyzed my left hand. So now I get government assistance. I get Social Security. My mother passed away, so I'm on her retirement benefits now. So I get, I get enough money now to survive. All right, so this is the reason why I was able to move anywhere I wanted to and not worry about work and concentrate on watching these UFOs in the sky and actually researching them. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why people just don't have the time, because they have to go to work, they have to go to school. They don't have the time to actually find out what's going on. They're reading books from people and just taking their word for it and not really examining it themselves, not investigating things on their own. And that's what I'm trying. That's my whole point to my work is, look what I did. Look what I did. Don't take my word for it. Don't take some word of somebody in a book. Go out there and hunt these things down for yourselves like I did. And one thing that you have that I don't have is me. And I'm telling you, these things are hanging around these mountains. All right. I discovered this in 2005. When you have petroglyphs of spirals on a mountain, that is the place. That is the source on where to look for these entities that we see in the skies today.
Wow.
Look how this thing is coming. This thing is coming right over to us. And when it gets right above us, see, now this is my second story window, right? That's my windowsill. You can see I'm filming here. All right. So when it gets out like to the parking lot, in the meantime, my kid's getting ready for school. I was supposed to, walk him to the bus stop, and I'm like, dude, Josh, you're going to have to walk yourself to the bus stop because this thing's right in the parking lot. So I grabbed my kid and I grabbed my camera, and now I'm out in the parking lot now, and I'm videotaping this thing right over us. All right. So my son is leaving. He's walking away. He's going to the bus stop. I'm sitting here watching this thing in the sky. And when you notice what it does, it kind of like, it changes shape. It morphs. Okay, yep. Soon. Oh yeah, now here it comes. Okay, so I'm not in the parking lot yet. This is when it goes. It's coming right over my apartment complex. It's coming right at me. It's right here now, right? And let's see. Now I'm in the parking lot now.
Okay.
Now I'm taping this thing. Okay, and so now it's like right over us. Now look, it's looking because my son is walking to the left of the screen here. And that's the way this thing is direction is pointing. It's looking to the left. Right now, I'm at the bottom of it. Okay. So yeah, this is just one of the flying serpents that filmed, and this is the very first one. And when I discovered this, when I filmed this, I took this to the news also, and this made the news. And so earlier I talked about the airplanes. Well, now I'm dealing with black helicopters. Okay, these black helicopters. Yeah, so now they know where I'm at now. They know I'm watching these things. All right, and these look at that thing. It just turned into a cross.
Turn a cross, yeah.
See how it's morphing? It's shape shifting, right?
Yeah.
See, it's
got a glow on it too. It's got like a pinkish glow on it.
Right. Yeah, So, these helicopters are watching me now, and about a few days after I made the news on this sighting, this black helicopter went 3 times through that canyon, stood nose to nose to that canyon, and then circled around the mountain and then went back to that canyon. And then it went to, I was watching like 3 or 4 doorways at the time where these things were coming and going from. And, he went to those doors that I was watching, and he actually went to some other doors that I didn't know about where he showed me where they were, Wow. And then the helicopter is pointing right at me. So yeah, I have that on videotape. I got the black helicopters, and sometimes they would come right out my window, and then minutes later a UFO would leave the mountain or come down and land on the mountain. So yeah, so we don't have a lot of time, so I want to move on. So this next video, this is what really took the cake. This is when I knew I was right. Okay.
Okay.
So let's take a look at this here. Now, what we're seeing now is a petroglyph of two guys looking up at what looks like crooked snakes. And you see that? You see that? Can you see that? Oh, did we lose it? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, can you see the video?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, cool. So look at that formation. This is carved on South Mountain anywhere from 800 to 1,000 years ago. Okay?
Wow.
Right. Now look at this here that came off the mountain March 9th of 2005. Look at the same formation. Do you see that? This is how I knew that these petroglyphs were talking about these entities that we see in the skies today. The exact same thing. And when I took this to the news, and you know, I had evidence, that's when the news just ate it all up. You know, this is a new theory on the lights. You know, and I was making right then. I was doing like a lot of radio shows and things like that. And that's when UFO magazine contacted me, and they asked me to do an article for UFO magazine. And I did an article for UFO magazine, and then that turned into a pilot for the UFO Hunter show. And so Pat Usker came down to Phoenix, Arizona. He had this idea of filming people who are filming UFOs and talking about it and making a show out of it. This was Pat Usker's idea to get this show going, now known as the UFO Hunter show. And so when Pat found out what I was doing and found out that I made the connection with the petroglyphs, he contacted me to do the pilot. And so, you know, I agreed, and we did the pilot for the UFO Hunter show. And we were talking about the petroglyphs and things like that. And, you know, because it was all a theory, you know, for many, many years, you know, people are saying, well, we think the Native Americans were carving UFO sightings on the rock, you know, but nobody had the proof, you know, but I did. I have the proof now. You know, no one has ever done this before. You know, I sat by the mountain, I studied the petroglyphs, and I saw these spirits, these entities coming out of the mountain. And I matched it to the rock art. No one has ever done this before. This is the reason why I call my research petroglyphs in the sky, because this is what we're seeing in the skies today. We're not seeing spaceships, we're not seeing crafts, we're seeing living entities. Okay, so, and another thing I want to bring up, not once, I've done research all over the Valley of the Sun. I've been all over these mountains here, and not once did I ever see anything that resembled a spaceship or a craft or anything like that. Now, this is interesting. Watch this. Here comes an airplane. There's a 747 jumbo jet. Look at that. He flies right next to that entity. And I'm just wondering, did those people in that airplane see that thing? Right, you know. Look at this creature. Look at what's in our skies today. This is not a spaceship. This thing is alive. This thing knows who's watching it and who's not. This is the reason why they're getting away with being in our skies today. Because people see these things, right? And because they're looking for spaceships and technologies, they totally blow these things off, and they think that they're balloons, they think they're flares, they think they're bags in the sky, and they blow it off, right? They're not studying these things. Because why? They're looking for spaceships in the sky.
Cool.
And so yeah, you know, and oh wow, we got another person. Hello.
Yeah. So okay, so Jeff Woolwine, Paul Shishi has just joined. So Paul Shishi, he's been interviewed once before in the Uforia Chronicles with Charlie and myself. And Paul Shishi, please welcome Jeff Woolwine. Jeff, welcome Paul Shishi.
Hey Jeff, I'm glad to know you, and I've known about you probably since 2005, going back to Jerry Pippin. And of course, in the early years, 2002, I believe even you were back then filming in 2003-04. Amazing sightings that I thought, that guy is capturing some really amazing aerial anomalies that are morphing.
Right.
I found for myself in 2003, the sightings hit the roof here in Ontario that I noticed. And now that I see and have known about what you've been doing more recent and connecting the pictographs from the rocks to collaborating with native in retrospect from ancient knowledge of history of the way it was and where it is today, what you're witnessing. I just have one question too, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Do you find when you're witnessing them that others can see them, or that it may be directed at you alone? As I've studied, even with sightings, that there are two groups of sightings. There are sightings that are particularly for the directed person and maybe persons, and other people don't see them. For example, there are sightings on highways, over cities, and the objects are extremely big, where being so big, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people should be witnessing them, when in fact it might be just one individual or a few. And the other sightings are where it's open, where all can see these sightings and groupings. I'm wondering if you have found this in your experience.
Yeah, and I think I might have a possible theory to that explanation. A lot of people, they just like, it all depends. It all depends on how high the thing is. I have a trained eye. I've been watching these things for a long time, so I can spot them a mile away, right? But a lot of other people who's never seen them before, might not catch on to it, might not see it. Another thing that I kind of noticed in my investigations over the last 20 years, I noticed that some people see them a lot while other people don't, and whether this has something to do with some kind of bloodline in history where, like my ancestors, your ancestors, other people, they were seeing them, so I'm going to see them, that we are attracted to these things. I don't know, or I had a motorcycle accident. I died. I had an out-of-body experience. Did this bring me closer to these spirits? I don't know. It's another theory. Another theory is also, so when something is like in the sky and you're looking at it in this parallel direction, you're looking at this direction, right? You see it here. But if someone is over here and they don't see it, maybe it's because they have to be in the right position. All right, so maybe you can only see it from here. You can't see it from over here because somehow they're blocking that field. They're like it's like a glass or a mirror or like an invisible wall, right? So you have to get past that invisible wall to see the thing, because if the person is in front of that invisible wall, he can't see it. But if he moves past that invisible wall, he can see it. So that's just a theory. I don't know. That's just, that's just a theory on why some people see them and why others don't. And I also learned that you have to have faith. Okay, if you don't believe in them, they're not going to believe in you. All right, you have to believe in them. You have to know that they are here. And when people, they understand this, they know who's watching them, right? They know who's paying attention and who's not. Okay, and they want to be seen, believe it or not. They want to be seen. They love it when they are being videotaped. Okay, because when I was sitting out there on that mountain, I mean, I would see like one, and then another one would seem like it would get jealous, and because I'm not paying attention to him, and he would fly right in the middle, right? He would say, hey, look at me, don't look at him, look at me, look what I can do, right? So they're playing games up there. They're trying to get my attention, and that seems to be, what was going on by South Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona. That's what I kind of got drawn into. I kind of noticed that, like this guy over here, he's getting jealous because I'm not watching him,
Another theory on that, guys, too, is because you just met me, that's a good question. You got a good answer, too. But it's okay. So here I am. I got the earbuds on, if you can see that and stuff like that. My son, he can be with me too, and he's got the earbuds too. He could be listening to rap, and I could be listening to Jim Morrison and the Doors. Two different genres, two different settings, two different frequencies. So what happens is why one person can see it whereas the other person can't see it is because of the state of frequency now. Because frequency, it's like tuning a radio dial, right? You got 97.7, you got 97.1, you got 98.8,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So
I would agree to that, yeah.
depending on the frequency, the tuning, it's like a tuning fork, right?
Sure.
And certain people can see and certain not. I had one person as well where my whole family, I'm driving a car to go to a camping UFO event that we organized by Silent Lake. I got my family, plus I have a Buddhist spiritual meditation practitioner in the car with me. And we're driving. Now, if anybody could see it, you'd think it would be him. My family could see a UFO as I'm driving. My wife, right? My kids. We pulled over to the side of the road. I got out. We're looking at it. And I'm going, John, you see that? Look at it. Where? And I'm pointing up to, pointing where it is, right? And I was flabbergasted that he didn't see it. Right?
Yeah.
And this guy was like he would meditate for a long time, all the time, every day, man, meditation guru, right? And I figured, gee whiz, I said, you should be the first one to see it, right? And he couldn't catch it, right? And it's just like you said, it's the frequency, right? Sometimes they want you to see it, sometimes they don't want. Sometimes they don't want the other people to see it. Maybe they're not ready. I don't know, right?
Right, and it's like I said before, a lot of people, they're looking for spaceships and they don't understand this yet. So in 2005, I present all this for the pilot for the UFO Hunter show and also for the Ancient Aliens TV series. And then later in 2007, when the UFO Hunter show finally aired on the History Channel, they came back, the whole team came back to do a real show with me. And they were telling me, look, dude, you are filming some bizarre stuff. The public is not ready for this. If you're going to say anything about these things, you must say that they're crafts, that they're spaceships, Don't go saying entities, don't go saying spirits, don't say angels, don't say Nephilim, don't say fallen angels, don't say none of that stuff. The public is not ready for this yet. You have to keep it on spaceships, on crafts. And I was upset about all that, I just didn't know, the whole purpose to that, And so I was upset, and I just knew. I knew I was right. I knew what I was doing was correct. The petroglyphs were on my side. Everything that I was finding up there was correct. I'm seeing these things. The video camera was recording. I knew I was right. So I just kind of dealt with it, and I did a few other cable shows. I did True TV. And I did a lot of cable shows in Mexico with Jaime Maussan and some other TV appearances, But a lot of people just really didn't get it yet. And it took about another 8 to 10 years for people to finally catch up, to what I'm filming, because I'm getting people, sending me emails now. Dude, I saw a flying snake, or dude, I saw a flying spider, and I'm seeing these things, and they're not spaceships, man, they're alive. I'm like, dude, I know, I was the first one to prove this back in 2005. I was the first one to say, look, I think there's something else here, And so yeah, it was great, and they wouldn't let me, present my findings, because they said the public wasn't ready for it.
Now, Charlie, we got Charlie. He's my co-host here. Charlie's actually spent a lot of time in the film business. Okay, so he's done a lot of TV work. He's done some movie work. He's done some adult entertainment work, right? And so he's like a star here, and he knows some pretty cool people in the film industry there. Charlie, with what Jeff was saying, can you elaborate with your film industry expertise to what he was saying there? And I think you're muted right now. Maybe you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Jeff, it was great to hear you speak about your story about your Alien Hunter show. I was also supposed to do a show called Alien Hunters. I wasn't particularly happy about the show. specifically the name of the show, Hunting Aliens. It's kind of a, you know, a little bit graphic, maybe a little bit mean. But anyways, we did a pilot. The pilot was quite interesting, but I realized one thing. The people in this industry, especially the ones that are, I call them popped and propped, the guys that have the voices in this industry, they know absolutely nothing about ufology. I mean, me and James have interviewed tons of them, and I'm flabbergasted. But these are the voices that are propped and popped. So the people that control this industry, the ufology field specifically, I've noticed they're trying to control that information. And to have a guy like you, Jeff, that's knowledgeable and knows the truth, and even me, I knew things that nobody knew in the industry that I kind of kept to myself, and I realized that a lot of people were stealing my information and my knowledge. I realized that they don't want to give us a voice.
Right.
It's not that the public isn't ready. It's we don't want you to tell the public.
Right, and that's exactly the problems I ran into with a lot of producers. You know, they want to go a certain way, and I'm like, dude, it doesn't make sense if you go that way. The only way that makes sense, I went down that direction. I went that way, and it didn't add up. Nothing added up when you go that way. It doesn't make sense. If something doesn't make sense, then it's not credible. I went down that way, and then something changed, and I went this way, and it made a hell of a lot more sense going this way than that way. But the producers of all these cable shows, they want you to go that way to mislead the public and mislead people on what's going on here. And, you know, especially with the, you know, these ancient alien TV series, you know, Giorgio, you know, I mean, while that guy was in his little apartment trying to learn how to comb his hair, I'm out there on the mountain, dude, investigating these Phoenix lights. You know, this guy has not a clue what the hell is going on. But he's up there, you know, teaching this kind of bull crap that doesn't make sense, that does not add up, you know, is not credible. To me, it's hearsay. We cannot have hearsay. What we can prove is what we read in biblical scrolls that has been written between 4,000 and 7,000 years ago when it talks about these things. And then we can go up on the mountains and we can look at the Indian petroglyphs and we can see the photographs of what these ancient scrolls are talking about. The ancient scrolls are talking about giants. Oh my God, we see giants carved on the rocks out there. The ancient scroll says that these things came down from the heavens and the people there treated these things as gods. Oh my God, that's what the Indians are talking about is here. They're saying that these things are gods. They're like, they're gods, you know, and they worship these things, you know. So all this information, you know, especially with the Anunnaki, okay, the Anunnaki scrolls and the Sumerian texts and things like that. And, you know, when you take religion out of the Bible and you read it as like a history book, it tells you what these things are. It's great because Genesis 6, we can read on how these things were cast to earth and how these people worship these things as God, how they perform sacrifice, and these things taught these people the secret knowledge of the world and things like that. And then we can go out there on the rocks and we can see the prehistoric photographs because that's exactly what these rock art is. It's not some Indian on peyote. It's not just out there drawing graffiti. They are telling a story, man. They're telling a story in the specific areas on where the story event took place at. For instance, we see a bunch of spirals and carvings over here on this side of the mountain, but we don't see anything on that side of the mountain because nothing happened over there. When we see the petroglyphs on the mountain in a specific area, that is a testimony. That is the history. That is a prehistoric photograph of what took place there. And a lot of people just think that they're, you know, some Indian, he's just out there, you know, just drawing something crazy. But he's not, dude. He's telling us what's here. He's telling us flying worms, flying snakes, flying entities, flying diamonds, flying crosses, right? That is what he's seen. They didn't have video cameras back then. They had stone boulders to record their sightings on. That's exactly what they did. And this is how we can learn from them. So when we look at some of these things, when it talks about these spaceships and these little gray guys, and there's no evidence of this, I just can't go that way yet. That's not what I'm seeing here. The evidence points me another direction, this way, and when I tried to talk to the producers about this, nope, they didn't want to hear about it. They blackballed me. And I've been off the cable systems ever since. All right. So just now there's a new cable show coming up on the Travel Channel, and they're going to be using some of my UFO videos. I brought the
Nice.
packet list back to them. And they said they're going to talk to their producers, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what's going to go on with that. But at least, my work is starting to get back on the air now. But that's exactly what happened to me. Once I started going down this other direction, and a direction they didn't want me to go down, they blackballed me and they don't work with me anymore. And they're using puppets, to talk about stuff they have no idea. And just like what you said, man, they're stealing the information from legit UFO hunters, man, like you and I, who actually discover these things, and they're using it for their own gain and not telling the public where they got their information from.
Okay, so let me say something here too. So I've been doing this thing hardcore since about 2007 when I first actually met Paul, actually. He was one of the first people in ufology that I met. Now, having said that, I had the YouTube channels, okay? Now, we were blackballed. Charlie knows. Charlie was on YouTube there with me, okay? They shadow banned us. We were probably one of the first to be shadow banned, okay? Because I was in association with a lot of interesting people, okay? Paul had a couple of good friends too. We're mutual friends, okay? Very, very interesting people, okay? And so it would be very easy for an agent to look at my profile, look at my friends list and go, holy shit, right? Now, having said that, when we left YouTube, it was like a sign, hey man, they're shadow banning. I knew what shadow banning was before I even heard the term shadow banning, right? Because I said, what's going on, man? Why is this thing not taking off? And yet everybody's telling me they've seen my videos, they've seen this. Everybody's seeing videos, but the view count's like 1,000 people or something like that. I'm going, doesn't make any sense, right? And then I got off YouTube. We went to BitChute. YouTube still to this day owes me and Charlie $80, right? To this day, I'm just stating. So we got off. I was one of the first in October to say, you know what? I'm pulling off all my videos off YouTube. I'm not even leaving one there, not one upload. And to this day, I don't have one upload. I have a lot of playlists, but I took them all off. And I'm slowly adding them up on BitChute and other platforms that I find. Because Google, BitChute, Patreon even, okay? It's all Google connected, okay? And it's censored, okay? And Twitter too, right? And they censor out the people that they don't want to be known or talked about, right? Mm-hmm. People like yourself with true knowledge, right? People like Paul Shishi to an extent, okay? People that are seeing real things, and it's not bull, right? The reason why I brought Paul Shishi on here is because on the topic of flying snake UFOs or flying snakes, like I said when we first started, I seen them in Mexico on video. I seen your videos in Arizona, and the only other person I ever heard of seeing these flying snakes is Paul Shishi. And he's Paul, why don't we, on that note, explain to Jeff your sighting that you had at the, I think it was the Sandbanks. Where was your snake sighting?
Yes, it was at the Sandbanks off the shores of Lake Ontario, or near the shores off of Lake Ontario. So
is there a fault line there that you know of by chance?
Yeah, I believe there is a ley line there as well. It's known in the area as the Mary Burroughs Vortex, and the region from where I had the sighting stretches right across Lake Ontario to Kingston, where in the history of that area, going back even in the 1800s, that strange things were happening, boats getting lost or suddenly ending up at the bottom of the lake, with also reports of UFOs back then. So there does seem to be a strong magnetic field in that area, which could be an attraction or possible doorway or gateway for interdimensionals to come and go. So Jeff, this is very interesting, and I would really appreciate your take on this. It was on August 7th, 2003 at 1 a.m. at camp. I was outside the shower stalls to have a shower, and I was just finishing my cigarette before going in. Now, the setting is it was dark, and it's quiet at camp at 1 a.m., and there was a light on a single pole, of course, giving illumination in the back of the building. And as I'm having my cigarette, about 5 to 6 feet away from me, honestly, this close to about 5 to 6 feet high, this long type of creature. Now, to give you a better perspective of it, just imagine taking a broom handle stick, cutting it about 3 feet long, and increasing the girth of maybe about 4 to 5 inches. This creature had eyes at the front of it as it's passing me, looking almost like if you look at a goose eyes or a bird or fish, round, eyes looking like that. And I didn't much see a mouth or a beak as it was passing me by, but the eyes rolled back as it was flying by me. The body itself in color was gray with a little tinge of white. You could see sort of a marking in the side near the center of its length. I don't know what it was, but I'm just saying the unusual extra white color there. Maybe there's legs there, I don't know. And the kicker in this is that from behind this creature was like white feathers, like a propeller. It moved. As it moved past me, I could hear a gyration like a fan. It did a figure 8 and gone. And I screamed because I didn't know what to make of what the heck just came through here and just scared the bejesus out of me, because I've never seen anything like that. And the best way I could describe it would be like either a flying snake or like a flying fish, like a gar pike. I don't know if you're familiar with the pikes, but, it just had its long streamline of, like I best can describe, just like a pole, but it was 4 or 5 inches in diameter. So after 20, 30 seconds, trying to compose myself of the shock of what I just witnessed, it came back, but it was more 20, 30 feet away from me, not in the light, but I saw the body because of the way it came in. It did a figure 8, came in the same way and went out the same way. And I was so freaked out that I then went into the shower, and you have to pump quarters in to get the water going. And I just did that, and I was having the shower, and I was just calming down, because what was it I just saw? It wasn't a bird. No way. In fact, I even questioned someone who worked there describing it, and he says, "Oh, you must have seen a nighthawk." And I go, that was not a bird of any type that I recognize. And of course, when you start to see something like that, UFO, you want to find out what was that about. And so the best I found in research, because we haven't seen this written anywhere, of flying snakes, excuse me. Of course, there are flying snakes in the jungles where, they can be in a tree and come down, but they don't actually fly. They float in their movements of the way they wiggle. Now, I must also stress too, Jeff, that this creature wasn't bending. It looked straight, but it did have eyes. It was biological, And like in the studying, when you start to look, I found in, I believe it was Argentina. Now this information is back 2003-4. And I found that there were pictographs of these same kind of things on the rocks in Argentina. And of course, then when the Aztecs, in the description of Quetzalcoatl, that they called
Maya.
The Feather Serpent. And I thought that's pretty strange. The feather flying serpent.
Yeah,
That's kind of like what I had seen, because it had feathers at the back, but it had no wings at the side. And I stress again, you could hear a gyration like a fan as it passed me. So I'm just wondering, what do you think about that?
You know, that is interesting. That's something that, you know, apparently it was on the ground, you said?
It was 5 to 6 feet above the ground flying by.
I see. Yeah, so you were probably right next to one of these entities. You know, right next to a doorway. So yeah, you know, I have found some things that, you know, kind of resemble you know, Quetzalcoatl, if you will. I don't know. Here's a photograph of what I filmed. Can you see that there?
Yes. Yes.
It's like a flying serpent.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly the same thing. So it kind of reminds me of your story there a little bit, you know.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, I have had other sightings of long objects. Some are stationary, and some can be vertical. Some can be long, and some are long spinning, or I've seen swirling, spinning, movements, objects that are changing shape in letters, like in a letter S, for example. And, you know, I have photographs of these things myself, as where I'm listening to you giving testimony. You're not talking spacecrafts or any types of crafts that Hollywood brings out, or that crafts that have been reported, such as a triangle. You are in a different category of, I believe, cryptoids. And the cryptoids are very fast, as some can be, which has been caught on film. Thanks to the pioneers, you've probably heard of John Bro or John Wilkie, of him starting that. And the things that are captured that people don't intentionally have captured things that are long, such as the rods. I've seen some pretty good pictures, even in the day, over water. And it looked like a broom handle stick, but I didn't really see any eyes on it. But it shows you the variety of, when we talk unknown aerial anomalies, it comes in various layers, you know, from possibly, as James had been talking about, that frequency radio station, that more than one channel, there are many different channels, and at a higher vibrational, we can also see, besides solid in what you film, and I'm sure you have seen, pure light, which is giving a graduation of what we call higher intelligence than the higher that's above us. So it's non-physical, craft not included. And the manifestation of some of these things we witness, to at the present time we're thinking in our emotional state, is amazing, showing us a visual form of contact. And this is for you, the individual, because as we were talking earlier, that, yeah, people, the way they're standing, they're a little away from you, they can't maybe see the same. I find, and I know James will agree with this, and Charlie, that an experiencer who's at that vibrational state, such as yourself, if you come to the witness to point it out to them, they will, most I found, within a minute or two, depending on how the object is in speed or stationary, will eventually see it because of also altitude. I understand what you mean. You got a keen kind of hawk eye. Like, what is that? Because you're sensitive at that moment, getting that, sure, you get that feeling that you're going to see something. For example, too, that the weather is good, the sky is clear, and you just have that hunch that I'm going to see something today. And
that's happened many times.
Yeah. So I understand clearly what you're talking about. I was listening attentively what you were talking about with the media. I've brushed against the media as well. There are stories about that I get suspicious about. So I don't go into the vacuum to get sucked in, where I've also spoken to people who have been on mainstream documentaries, even that what they put for the date in description, they don't want to put it, they changed it. So the narrative of the truth has been swayed, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the absolute truth, the infinite truth of what we are witnessing, experiencing, and what messages are we getting as a group. Because I'm sure, like yourself and myself and James and Charlie, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people who are starting to see things and are connecting, that there is some form of a connection, contact happening, giving the individual more insight of who we really are.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I myself have had sightings going back to 1967, which was an icon year for North America. Here in Canada, we had what we called the Shag Harbor crash. Maybe you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And from 2002, I had 9 sightings with one close encounter where I could have hit it with a rock. And in 2003, and I believe it may have had something to do with Mars and Earth's closeness as well, that the doors open, that I had 16 sightings. 14 were daylights. They were the most amazing sightings. I'm telling you, Jeff, if I had a camera at the time and had filmed them, yeah. Oh my gosh, somebody would certainly be at my door.
Yeah, that's why I started taking a camera with me everywhere I go. You know, I'm always ready. I'm like a Boy Scout. I'm always prepared. You know,
I have a question too for you, Jeff. Do you find sometimes when you see something extraordinary that you lift the camera to it and it winks out on you?
Sometimes it does that. But like I said before, these things, at least for me, they want to be seen. They want me to film them.
They do, and, the majority.
Yeah, you know, so there are lots, especially like, because I do tours on South Mountain, I talk about the petroglyphs, and, you know, when I have a non-believer with me, then them seeing a UFO up there on the mountain with me are slim.
Right.
But that's why I always ask the people who are with me, have you ever seen these things before? Because if they have, then there's more of a chance of them seeing them, you know, while we're on the mountain, because they're used to them, you know, and the person with me understands that they're here. For instance, if I have a skeptic with me, or if I have someone who doesn't believe, you know, then they're shy. These things are shy. They're not going to come out, you know, and show themselves to you. You know, so that's why I said at the beginning of the show, you have to be, you know, willing. You have to have an open mind. You have to be, you know, acknowledge that these things are real, you know, because once you do that, once you acknowledge them, then they will acknowledge you.
Correct.
Now, guys, Paul and Charlie, this is why I don't like to do sky watches a lot, okay? Because you get a lot of non-believers that come down, And it's just a waste of time. You don't see a sighting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that happens. It's better even when you, because I do ghost hunting also. I do ghost hunting, and when you're in a group, it's really hard for something to become active unless you're by yourself or with somebody who believes. Once you're by yourself or with someone who believes, then you're gonna have a sighting. You're gonna have an encounter. But if you're with a bunch of other people, that's the chances of seeing something are pretty slim. So we don't have a lot of time. Can I get into more of my story about South Mountain and Phoenix?
Yes, you can. Go for it, buddy.
Awesome. Okay, so we have been talking about, I've been talking about the petroglyphs and the Indians, and now I'm finding tombs on South Mountain. Okay, I'm finding things that are buried up there, right? And I'm finding petroglyphs that resemble Mayan petroglyphs. All right, so I'm finding all this stuff, I'm finding all this evidence, right? Because I'm seeing it, I'm documenting it. I'm an archaeologist. I've been studying archaeologists way before ufology, so I can spot something, that's not normal, that's been man-made a mile away. So I'm very good at the landscape. I know how to read rocks and structures and stuff like that. So I know that this is man-made. This is a buried tomb. This is a tomb. Well, how come the archaeologists of the city of Phoenix is not talking about this, right? How come, the city of Phoenix has made South Mountain a government park? All right. So if you take a rock from that park, you can go to jail. You can't go off the trails. You have to stand on the trails, right? It's because of what's there. They don't want you to find out the real history to this. All right. Even the archaeologists, will not talk about this. Right? I was on the news in Phoenix, Arizona with the city archaeologist, talking about the petroglyphs, talking about these UFOs. And he was totally blowing people's smoke up their butts, and it just made me sick. Because look, dude, look at the stuff that I found out there. How can you go and say, that there's not, that these things are not talking about UFOs, that the petroglyphs are not talking about these entities, that the Mayans were here. What is up with you, dude? And so for a year, I'm going on news reports, I'm doing shows, and I'm presenting all this evidence. I got photographs, but I really don't have anything to back me up. I got the photographs from the petroglyphs, I got the UFOs, all that's backing me up. But the history, there's more to it. Why are these petroglyphs, being blown up? I realized that the CCC, the Central Corps of Conservation, the CCC back then in the 1930s under President Roosevelt's New Deal. All right, so they hired a bunch of people. This during the Depression. They hired a bunch of people to live on South Mountain. And they did it for like 2 years. And they made mines. There's mines up there. Matter of fact, they pulled out about $60,000 worth of gold and silver out of South Mountain. They built ramadas. They built picnic areas. They built trails. And they blew up petroglyphs, all right? So I'm wondering, why the hell is the CCC picking on these rocks? Why are they blowing up petroglyphs? This rock with the petroglyph is exactly the same type of rock over there, but you blew up the petroglyphs over here. Why? Why are you doing that? So I started asking myself, well, what the hell is going on here? So I went to the Phoenix Library downtown, and I went to the Arizona room. It's a type of government facility. And I asked the lady, I was like, dude, just give me all the folders you have on South Mountain. Well, she gives me a folder, and it was like 5 inches thick. And first thing I opened up, boom, this information, everything that I discovered, everything that I was talking about a year before, hit me in the face like a ton of bricks, man. There it was. It was the first park ranger of South Mountain. His name was Charles Holberg, and he was the first park ranger from the 1930s all the way to the end of the 1940s, right? And the Indians trusted Charles. They told Charles the history of Phoenix, Arizona. They told Charles about how the Mayans were here. They told Charles about the Hohokams. Now, the Hohokams is a Pima name for the people who were gone, the people who were missing, because we don't know what happened to these people. They ruled here in the Valley of the Sun for 1,000 years. They were masters of the canal systems of the world at that time. They were here one day, then up and disappeared the next. This seems to go along with some of the other tribes around the world who had no contact with each other, but yet were there for 1,000 years and then simply vanished from history with no trace. Now,
well, the Mayas and the Incas, or the Incas and the Mayas did. And then now, Machu Picchu, prime example, right?
Absolutely.
So, Jeff,
absolutely.
The holocombs. Because I'm not familiar with when they actually left the area. Maybe you are. What year was it where they disappeared? Do you know?
Well, some say that they were here between anywhere from 900 AD to 1200 AD. So they were here at least 900 to 1,000 years ago. And so the holocom means it's a Pima name for the people who are gone, people who are missing. And the archaeologist wants us to believe, well, they simply migrated somewhere else. Well, if that's true, then where did they go? Right? There's no evidence on where they went. But the archaeologist is leading people to believe that they simply migrated out of the area and they all disappeared. They migrated everywhere. But that doesn't make any sense. Okay? If something doesn't make sense, then it's not credible. All right? And even when me and you move, we take our belongings with us. But yet the holocoms didn't. They left all their belongings there and simply vanished, disappeared from history without a trace. Now, when you ask the ancestors, right, the people, the Native Americans who, because the Pimas, when you ask some of the Pimas and the To'oto people, like, I don't know if I said their name right, To'oto Odom, I think that's how you say it, they consider themselves ancestors to the holocoms also. And when you ask them, what happened to your people, they will tell you, they will say that the devil came from the east and took these people away. They took my people away. Now, this coincides with what the petroglyphs depicts, all right? The petroglyph shows that these flying serpents, these phoenix lights, these living entities in the sky came down and was picking people up and taking them off into the sky, never to return. Now, some of these petroglyphs do depict them like playing with man in the sky and then, and then putting them down and then they would go away. But a lot of these petroglyphs out there does show them picking man up, picking animals up, deers, coyotes, things like that, and taking them off into the sky. Okay, so with the Pimas told Charles the whole history of Phoenix, Arizona, the whole history of the Valley of the Sun. And in this story, Charles Holbrook writes, he says, when the holocoms first arrived in this valley, it wasn't a dried up valley as we see it today. It was not desert. There was a tropical-like landscape area. And we can find evidence of this from the waterfalls that we find on the mountains around Phoenix, Arizona, and other suggesting sites that it wasn't always a dried up area. There was a lot of water here in the valley. And so when they first arrived here, they didn't know how to live. So they said that the lizard people came up out of the sand world and came down from the sky, and they turned themselves in to look like everybody else. And they taught these people the secret ways. They taught these people how to survive. In return, they worshiped these things as gods. There was altars out there. I found altars on South Mountain where they were performing sacrifice. And it was sacrifice of young children and enemies that they caught when sometimes they would go to war with some of these other tribes. But mostly the holocoms was a peaceful race. But they did perform sacrifice to these phoenix lights, to these beings in the skies. They were shape-shifting. They were shape-shifting into the likeness of man, into the likeness of snakes, into the likeness of deers and lambs and animals and weird things. And this is what we see on the rocks today. When we look at the petroglyphs, we see squiggly lines and squiggly snakes and diamonds and such. This is what they were seeing in the sky. So wow. They ruled here for 1,000 years. As a matter of fact, Phoenix, Arizona was a major hotspot. This was a sacred mountain. This was a holy mountain. And this was a major spot where all the tribes from all the nations used to gather at for like hunting and trade and to watch their gods come and go from the holy mountain. South Mountain wasn't the original name. The original name of South Mountain was Mount Sepoa, Mountain of Mercy, because this is where the spirits were. This is where it was holy at. This is where these entities gathered at. And all tribes from all around the nations came and watched these entities in the sky. And we could, a lot of people ask me, well, can we carbon date the petroglyphs? No, we cannot carbon date the petroglyphs. What we can do is carbon date the pottery shards left behind. And some of these pottery shards, there's evidence that some of the dirt is not native to Arizona. Some of the dirt comes from California. Some of the dirt is coming from Mexico. Some of the dirt is coming from Nevada and other parts of the United States. This we verified. This is how they get their rough date between 900 AD to 1000 to 200 year AD. Is not from the petroglyphs, but from the pottery shards and some of the artifacts left behind. That's the only way we can really carbon date anything. So they ruled here. The Mayans were here, right? They came down from Mexico. I mean, look at Arizona now. Arizona has a lot of Mexicans in it now. You know, well, it's because of this was, you know, back in the day when you really search it, you know, Arizona and parts of California was Mexico. This was Mexico until the United States were formed, and then there was a battle, and we won't go into that. And then Arizona was made, and Mexico was pushed down a little bit further. But this was part of Mexico at one time. And so, of course, the Mayans were here. Of course, the Aztecs were here. You know, this is why we find evidence of the petroglyphs. The petroglyphs show that of these Mayan carvings, of these Aztec carvings, because they were here also, right? And they were tombs. There were golds of tombs. He writes in his journal, he says, a handful of corn for a handful of gold. All right, that's pretty significant there. And they would melt this gold down into gold idols. And this went on for 1,000 years until one day, nobody knows why, until one day the sacrificing stopped. And this upset the spirits. They didn't worship the sun, but they felt the sun was a tyrant god. All right, and all these serpents, all these entities, the lights and everything else, that was their sky creatures. That was their gods or whatever. But the sun, he was a tyrant god. They didn't worship him, but they worshiped these beings in the sky because they were the ones that came down and taught these people how to survive. They taught these people how to live. And so when the sacrificing stopped, that's when the area started to dry up. That's when the waterfalls stopped. The water stopped flowing. Things are dying. And everybody was scared. Oh, we upset the gods. You know, we upset the gods. Look at what's happening to our land. It's becoming dry. We shouldn't have stopped the sacrifice. And then all of a sudden, boom, these serpents, these phoenix lights, these entities came from the east and took these people away and carried them off into the sky. Now, there were people who survived this Holocaust. The story goes on to say that these people were afraid and they lived in caves and they watched what was going on. And since it was all over, that's when they knew that it was wrong to stop the sacrifice. And they knew that if they were going to continue to live in this valley, that eventually they would have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. So they packed up all their gold, they buried it in tombs, and they vowed never to come back into this valley. They cursed this land. This land was cursed. If anybody was going to live here, they were going to have to deal with these entities in the sky. They were going to have to deal with these phoenix lights. So they bailed. They got the hell out of Dodge. They cruised. They left this valley, never to return. So for 400 years went on, there were tribes on the outskirts of this valley, and they saw the lights, and they saw the serpents, and they saw the orbs in the sky, and they were afraid because they knew, because generations upon generations, the story was being told on what happened to their ancestors, and they knew this was a cursed land. And it didn't happen until until around the 1800s when Jack Swelling and his people came up over the west side of the mountains, over the White Tank Mountains that we know about today, and looked down at the land and saw the Indian canals and saw the lush farmland and said, wouldn't this be great to have a city? Wouldn't this be great to start a new civilization here? You know, so we're building on the ashes of the formal civilization. So out came this fiery bird, the phoenix, that the city grew from the formal ashes of the civilization who once lived there. But they failed to understand who these people were, but yet their testimonies, their mountains, their scrolls of these mountains are all over the Valley of the Sun, and it tells us a prehistoric photograph of what happened to these people and where they went to. So this is the whole story of Phoenix, Arizona. This is why the archaeologist does not talk about this, okay? Because yes, there are tombs there. Yes, there's giants out there. What if there's a tomb that has a giant in it? Or what if there's a tomb that has, some Spanish conquistadors' helmets, or stuff that will not make sense, So they made it a government land so nobody can go in there and dig stuff up. Once you find it, you have to leave it alone, because if you bring it out, you're gonna go to prison. You're gonna have a big fine, and plus, it's gonna change the history of what we were being told by the archaeologists for so many years. It's gonna change Arizona's history. Now, this is everything in this folder. This is what the first park ranger says. All right, about Phoenix, Arizona. Now, once he died, all this information was buried in a folder in a public library for 80 years and not spoke about until I came around researching the South Mountain and trying to figure out why they were blowing up petroglyphs, and I discovered all this information. So now I have proof. I have the city archaeologists on my side saying, yes, dude, there's tombs out there. Yeah, man, these petroglyphs are talking about these spirits of the earth and sky. Yes, these Indians, the Mayans were here, man. The city archaeologist is backing me up on this. And it's just fascinating. And so one thing I really want to stress on this. Now, when Dave was telling me about these lizard people, okay, so how they came up out of the sand world, he's the Native American shaman that I mentioned at the earlier in the show. He says that these lizard people. So we see a lot of these petroglyphs here, okay, where it has a tail, right, and it has that circular body there. Okay, now look how big this is compared to that guy on the bottom right there. You see that? And the reason why they call this, a lizard man is because he's got a tail. All right, so a lot of beliefs are that circular body there is him halfway in the underworld and him halfway into our world. But I beg to differ. When I'm watching these things and studying these things and watching how they shapeshift and I understand the petroglyphs and what they're talking about, I believe that circular in the middle there is the orb, is the light that we are seeing in the skies today. And he is morphing. The archaeologist likes to say he is anthropomorphing. He's anthropomorphing. He's changing. He's looking like a man. He's growing that tail. And that tail really isn't a tail, but that's the thing that was picking people up and taking them up into the sky, in which the petroglyphs depict. All right, so when we see that orb in the belly, that is what we see in the skies now. And it's only a matter of time. Actually, it's happening now. I have seen these orbs change into a serpent, and then that serpent change into a stick-figure man petroglyph. That is what I believe is going on in our skies today.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And the phoenix bird, what's it depict in archaeology and your findings?
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of petroglyphs out there with the thunderbird, the pterodactyl.
Okay, yeah.
So the thunderbird, things like that. So the phoenix is more of a man-made, is more of a white man's name. Actually, it comes, from the Phoenicians, the land of the giants. Well, that's the reason why, one of the reasons why, we're Phoenicians now, dude, is because, we do come from this lost history of Phoenix, Arizona. And this is the reason why, in my opinion, that disclosure that everybody seems to be talking about will never come into play. Okay, sure, the government and everybody's going to say, yeah, we're going to talk about UFOs, or we're going to admit that they're here, but we're not going to tell you the reasons. All right, we're not going to tell you what happened in their history, because to understand what our future, we have to understand our past. All right, because history has the tendency to repeat itself, and that's exactly what is going on. The Hopis say that we're in the fourth world and we're getting ready to enter the fifth. Now, every time the new world starts over again, these entities from the earth and sky are there to teach man or to mislead man into believing that these things are gods. Okay, and so this is the reason why these things are simply watchers in the skies now. They know that we're at the biblical days. They know that we're at the end of times. They know that the fifth world is approaching and the fourth world is about to end. This is the reason why we see so much of them, especially we see a lot of them when mankind goes to war. Look at World War II. They're chasing around these Foo Fighters, right? These red, orange, amber lights, dude, that we're seeing in the skies today. So whenever mankind starts to war with each other big time on Earth, that's what attracts these beings. And I believe that they don't know when the date is going to actually happen. No one really knows when this fifth world is going to happen. Only the great creator knows, and I believe that there's some kind of rule. Even these beings, even these angels, these fallen angels, these Nephilim, these cherubim, they have rules too. And this is the reason why they are not coming down and making contact with us. Why? Because we don't need them yet. All right. If one came down and says, hey, look at me, look what I can do, it would be headline news for a few days, but then everybody would have to go back to work, have to go back to school. They have their own lives. But if something was to happen, for instance, 2/3 of the world is destroyed and there's no food and there's no water and everything is in a shambles, all right, and man can't survive anymore. What happens if they see that light in the sky and one comes down and he morphs, he anthropomorphs, he changes into a man and he says, look what I can do for you. I can clean up the air. I can clean up the water. I can give you food. In return, worship me. I am your God. I am the one that you have been waiting for. And that opens up a whole book of what they call revelations. Now, I went down that one road thinking, man from Mars, spaceships, alien technologies, they're here to help us. They're gonna cure cancer. They're here to help us. This is a great thing. I did a 180, man, and I'm looking down another road here because this is where the evidence is taking me. The evidence, all this, petroglyphs and the scrolls and what we see in the skies today and the history, everything is pointing me down this direction, and this direction is a scary thing. And this is the reason why the government and people in authority who know these things, who know about these things that are here on planet Earth, is never going to say anything. When these things, when it starts to happen, they're going to go into hiding, man. And we're going to be fending for ourselves to deal with these beings in the sky. Because the government, the people who know about this, they're going to be underground because they know what's coming. So they're simply monitoring what's going on. This is the reason why I dealt with the airplanes in 2004 when I was filming the lights. And then when I moved to the mountain, I was dealing with black helicopters. Okay, they know what's going on here.
Now, the mountain where you moved to, what's it called? And what's the name of the town there? The mountain.
The mountain is South Mountain. Excuse me. It's South Mountain. And that's where the original 1997 lights occurred at. This was on the west side of the valley. And then I filmed the lights on the east side of the valley.
Okay, so is it in Mesa, though, or Mesa?
No, it's in Phoenix. It's
in Phoenix.
Right, it's in Phoenix, right.
Okay, so now that area of the mountain, it's also a park, you were saying, right?
Yeah, they made it a government park. It's like
right.
It's like one of the only like major government park in like the whole United States, where it's like, why would they do that?
Well, right now I'm trying to get at that too, because I'm kind of like you too. Archaeology is a big thing of me too, and psychic investigations and paranormal investigations. So now getting back to the mountainside, now missing people. Are there a lot of missing people on that mountain?
No, the only people that comes up missing are the people who tell the news and who boast that they have a map to the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, and they go up there on the Superstition Mountains and they're never seen again. You know why? Because the Apaches still live on that mountain, and I believe they know where that gold is, and they're not letting anybody go there. Right. So there was a case like 3 years ago. These people said that they had a map to the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, and they found their cars in the parking lot, but no trace of them. They disappeared. So when it comes to like abductions and things like that, it has nothing to do with aliens. It has nothing to do with these entities. It's not time yet. If it was, they would have taken me a long time ago. While I was up on the mountain by myself. I'm up there talking to them. I'm dealing with them. They're not taking me away. It's not time yet. You see, they don't know when, but they know it's getting close. So eventually, yes, these things will be coming down, and taking people up into the sky. Now, this is interesting too, because when we read First Thessalonians, this is what this rapture that all these preachers talk about. It says, we will be caught up and meet the Lord in the sky. We will be caught. We will be caught up. Well, is that what happened to the Holocaunt? These things came down and caught these people and took them up. Is that a rapture? What happened to the Holocaunt Indians because they were worshiping these false gods? But then again, we have to also look at some of these scriptures where the great creator does use these beings to help mankind out. For instance, let's look at Moses and the people coming out of Egypt, and the Israelites come out of Egypt. It tells us that they followed a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and that's what led these people out of Egypt. Okay, so basically, when you read the book of Numbers and you read the book of Exodus, it's telling you that they were following to us what we know as a UFO in the sky for 40 years. All right, and it tells us that when that thing stopped in the sky, that everybody pitched tent. That was the time to camp, and nobody moved. Nobody moved until that thing started to move in the sky. And sometimes that thing would sit for a year, and whenever that thing started to move, then they knew it was time to go. And what happened to Moses? He went up on a mountain and got taken away by a light. A light came down, and we never saw this guy again. And who was it that brought the people into the promised land? It wasn't a man. It was that thing in the sky. Look at the light when it comes to the baby Jesus. These horsemen, these pilgrims, they're following a light, brings them to Jesus, right? Well, was it a phoenix light? You know, some say that it was Jupiter. Some say it was a star. But what if it was one of those UFOs? What if it was one of those entities, you know, that the great creator has told people to help mankind out with?
Well, so here's the question there too. I believe you 100% about that. That Star of Bethlehem, okay? So, Star of Bethlehem. Where is the Star of Bethlehem today?
Well, you know, a lot of people say that, you know, when you reverse, the scientists, when you reverse the globe and you reverse everything back, you know, take everything, the solar system and everything, it brings us back to Jupiter. A lot of scientists now say that was Jupiter that people were seeing in the sky. But, you know, if you're going to go that way, sure, fine and dandy, whatever. But I don't think that's the truth, dude.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either, because they would have known, because it's like, okay, the moon, Venus, Mars, the Orion belt, the Big Dipper, the Small Dipper. All these things were found thousands of years ago, identified and named. So we're only going back 2,000 years. And relatively speaking, in history, 2,000 years is not that long in comparison to like 5,000 years or the time of Plato and Socrates. Okay, that predates Jesus. Okay, right. And they had the names for these stars and planets, yet the Star of Bethlehem is not there.
And let's look at Orion. Okay, when we look at Orion's belt, you know, if we tip the world upside down, it aligns with the pyramids of Egypt. You know, so the pyramids of Egypt align with Orion's belt. You know, so how is that possible? You know, so that in a way that kind of tells us, you know, the Earth was that we're kind of upside down right now. You know, that the world, the poles shifted. You know, it turned into a world. It turned into the third world. You know, the poles shifted. You know, so yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so are you ready for some questions, Jeff?
Sure.
Okay, Charlie Kundalini. Now's your time to ask a couple questions to Jeff, and then we'll turn a couple questions to Paul. But Charlie, you're muted right now. Unmute yourself, and if you want to ask a question, you can ask away, buddy.
Okay, Jeff. Yeah, I remember one time I was with James, and we went to what was that guy in the wheelchair?
We went to I don't want to mention his name. We're not really friends no more.
Yeah,
because he became a skeptic there. But yeah, it was over in Lindsay, Ontario.
That's right. We're in Lindsay, Ontario, and I had a whole bunch of experiences at this place. And what I saw in the sky was a creature. that was floating, and I'll explain the creature to you. It was like a jellyfish floating in the sky, and it was, I would say, maybe 15 feet above me, and it just moved like a jellyfish or an octopus. Have you ever come across anything like that?
I've had a lot of sightings. I don't think I've ever seen anything like, I've seen these things like they're like a spirit. You can see through them, but nothing like a jellyfish resembling. No.
Okay.
But it's possible, because there are types of these, what you're describing is carved on the rocks. I have seen petroglyphs of carvings of what you're describing, sure. I personally haven't seen one. Mm-hmm. But that's interesting. That's great, man.
Yeah. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's great. Now, that's why I always tell people, look, always have a video camera with you, not a cell phone. Cell phones suck when you're trying to record the UFOs, man. You want to get a good camera, and one with a viewfinder, because if you use one with the window coming out, you got to deal with the sun. You got the sun glaring on the window, and it's hard to zoom in and keep things, so you want to get one with a viewfinder, and just take it with you. Put it in the car when you leave, because you never know when you're going to see one.
Right. Have you ever had any experiences with train tracks?
Train tracks.
And train tracks and your UFO hunting activity?
Well, are you talking about petroglyphs?
No, I'm talking about a train track or trains, train rails that go through the area where you're actually filming.
No,
Okay.
I've seen mines. I've explored the mines out there on South Mountain, and they have tracks for the the carts, but there isn't any train tracks.
Well, the reason why I ask is I've noticed there's a lot of spiritual entities that move along these railway tracks. So I was just kind of curious to see if there were any railway tracks going through, but you did say there was railway cars that were going through, right?
Yeah, from the miners, and that's interesting. I've heard a lot of stuff. I've never heard that before. So you kind of stumped me on that one. Good job.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard anything like that. I've heard a lot of stories over the last 20 years, but when it comes to that, no, man. So that's good. I'm going to look into that. Thank you.
Me and James went to a house to kind of clear a ghost. And I noticed the room that they had all this activity, which you talked about earlier, is that those what's it called? The worlds,
spirals?
The spirals, exactly, right. Exactly. And in this room that had the activity, there was a mechanical, sort of like it looked like sort of a clock. That's it. Right? That was right on the wall.
Yeah.
And I remember the direction of how it moved.
Right.
Right? And that one there actually went into the wall.
Sure.
But then I realized that the mattress?
Yeah.
If you sleep in a spring mattress, that's also a portal for these entities to come and go.
Yeah, right? I've never heard that either.
Yeah, that's it took a while for me to figure that out, but spring mattresses, that could be that could include a lot of spiritual activity. If you get rid of the spring mattresses, you can actually stop it or slow it down.
Yeah, it's
cool.
I agree, because so it's like a man-made vortex is what you get when you sleep, when you have a mattress coil. 90% of these, well, it's even 95% of these mattresses, but we all have them. It's the spiral coils, unless you have a mattress that's made out of memory foam.
Yeah.
Right, or a blow-up mattress, right?
Right.
Right, and It's like a portal vortex. Another way these entities come in too is the plumbing, right? So when you have the water go down the drain, right, it makes the spiral down, right, and then they
Sure.
come up. A lot of the haunted houses that I've encountered, you always ask them, "Have you had any plumbing problems?" And you'll be surprised how many of them say yes, right? Because these entities sometimes cause plumbing problems, floods, more or less floods.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So real quick, let's talk about this spiral real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So this spiral, we're going to start from the spiral here. And it's going, what is it doing? It's going counterclockwise. Okay, so this represents a doorway out, right? And it's ending down. So on the bottom of this, there's a big canyon, there's a big crevice, a big crack. Okay, so that the doorway is the crack on the bottom. So when we look closer, we can see, of course, we see the lizard on the right, but in the middle where the arrow is pointing, you can see an outline of this lizard. You see that? You see the outline to this lizard? It's like a ghost. He's in spirit form. Yep. And then as he gets out of the door more, he becomes more solid. That's exactly what these entities are doing. This is exactly the perfect example of what's going on out here on South Mountain. This is a carving on South Mountain. So this lizard is coming out of the doorway, and he's a ghost. He's a spirit form. You can see through him. And then as he emerges further, he becomes more solid. And then, of course, on the bottom is a man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
All those dots, that's people from shooting at it.
Yeah, I noticed the vortex there. You had it where the opening was pointed down. I mean, it's coming from the ground, right? From the earth. It's earthbound.
Well, in that particular spot, see that is actually, that petroglyph is actually kind of high up on the side of a hill. That's why there's so many gunshots there, is because the old timers back in the day of the Old West, they were shooting at the spiral, trying to hit it, because that's really kind of high up there. And once you climb up there, I've been up there many times. Once you climb up there, it's actually a crevice. It's a canyon. It's a hole that goes down into the mountain. So it's telling us that crack, that big canyon there, is the doorway for the spirits, for these entities.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you too is these beings. I would assume that they're etheric, but you're saying that they are etheric when they come through and then they solidify, and then when they go back, they become etheric again and they go into their own world. Does that? How would you view that from what you've studied?
Well, I mean, I understand why the natives call these things spirits, is because they are spirits. You can see through them. You know, they're transparent. They're ghosts. They're a jellyfish, if you will. You can see through them. You know, and if they're coming out of the doorway, then they become more solid. Then they start changing colors and they start shape shifting. You know, and then sometimes you might, you know, the energy from the fault line where they just came out of, you know, is starting to build up. So they're starting to grow lights. You know, they're starting to have lights on. Or if they're coming down on the mountain, then they're solid, and then they turn into a ghost, and then they just absorb. They disappear. They disappear into the rock. Crazy. Wow. But that's exactly what I witnessed. That's what the stories say. That's what the petroglyphs depicts. And that's what I videotaped many, many times.
Yeah. Well, just one last question. Have you found any evidence of the area that you're in and the area that you're filming in, of what that area would be like before the Ice Age? Is there any kind of record that we're talking 11,000 years ago, before the flood? Is there any kind of civilization or any kind of fossil that could be that old? Oh, so yeah. when the Ice Age thawed out in that area, do you have anything? Did you find anything out?
Well, there's a lot of stories, you know, from the Native Americans, you know, on how some of these worlds changed and how man survived. for instance, the ant people, when the earth was being consumed by fire, or the ice age, the ant people told the people to come down, come underground, live with us, we will protect you, and so all the humans did. And when the humans were down there, they ate up all the food. And when things went back to normal, the people came out of the sand, out of the ant world. And this is the reason why today the ants' waist are so skinny, is because man ate up all their food from the last ice age. And then there's another example when it comes to the flood. So we see there's a lot of Native American tribes out there who call themselves the Turtle Clan. And this Turtle Clan says that when the flood was here, a great turtle came over to the Indians who were being washed away and said, quick, jump up on my back, get up on my shoulder. I will take you to safety. Get up on my back. So all the Indians jumped on this massive turtle shell until the water subsided, and then they got to the land, and then the turtle finally went away. And that's why the natives call themselves, the Turtle Clan. There's a lot of Native American myths that speak on how when the earth changes, on how these beings are able to save mankind, or to help them live again. And just like last time, over 1,000 years ago, it was like a tropical-like landscape here in Phoenix, Arizona. It wasn't all dried up. And the evidence that we see is from the waterfalls, all the dried up waterfalls that are all over the mountains there, all the sand dunes now, all the dried up riverbeds. I mean, this was a land of a lot of water. We can see the evidence of this. And we can also see the evidence on how the water was as high as the mountains. There's weathering way up high on some of these mountains. So this valley was underwater for a very long time. This proves it. And that the water had subsided and finally, came up out of the valley. So yeah, sure. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that like I said, it wasn't always a dried up desert like that.
Okay, Jeff, I'm done with the questions.
Okay, that was wild. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to my other guest here. It's Paul Shishi. Do you have any questions for Jeff? Oh, hang on. There you go.
I do. Very interesting, Jeff. Boy, I could probably spend a couple of hours easy talking to you about many things.
Yeah, it's 2 years of research. There's a lot of information.
You are in the area of Phoenix. One of the things that tantalized me back then on March 13th, 1997, was indeed the Phoenix Lights. Probably the biggest icon sighting the world has seen beyond the Los Angeles 1942 and the flyover Washington in July 1952. I'm wondering your take on that why on that date, and which sort of resonates with me that actually the Hale Bobbit was on course coming across through near our planet where you could see it. And I'm just wondering your take that maybe it may have been a connection why the craft had chosen that area with the Hale Bobbit. If you know anything between or anything correlating to that, I'd be curious.
Okay, yeah, so you missed the beginning of the show when I was talking about the Phoenix Lights. There's a lot of people that claim that they saw this spaceship go over the valley. But let's take a look at what really happened on what we can prove here. Do you see it? Do you see the video?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. And the reason why we have video of what really happened that night is because there was sky watchers. These lights were going on. One of them his name was Tom King. Now he's been filming lights, way before 7. He was making the news way before March 13th, 1997. And so he was filming the lights and he was ready for them because he was filming lights 2 or 3 nights before. All right, so we had sky watchers out that night ready for something to happen. Now, if anything would have gone over Phoenix, these guys would have filmed it. But yet it's interesting on how we have a handful of people that filmed lights way far on the west side of South Mountain, way far west of the valley, but yet we have no videos and no evidence of any craft going 8 miles an hour, mind you, going over the city of Phoenix. There is no proof of this. There is no evidence of this. If a handful of people can film lights as we're seeing now, then why couldn't the same handful of people film a craft going over the city? This makes no sense. What I've come to understand is when it comes to the March 13, 1997 Phoenix lights, you know what? I was out there that night. I was out at a party. I was, outside at a friend of mine's, party. We were having some beers that night, and nothing flew over the valley. I was there. I was there most of the night. We didn't see nothing go over Phoenix. But later on, the news, comes back with this video that we're seeing today. And this is the only credible video that we have. And here, the evidence suggests that nothing went over Phoenix. Okay, this is not a spaceship. Each light is a living entity. And a lot of people, they just really don't understand this yet, because the only thing that they really understand is technology and spaceships. They don't know, they don't understand living entities, living beings yet. They're not, they just don't have, they haven't been shown this yet. They haven't been taught this yet. This is a new concept on the Phoenix lights, that these aren't spaceships, they're living entities. Now look at this. They come in there, they're making a spread, and then they disappear. And what are they doing? This is far west of South Mountain. They are absorbing the energy fault lines there. And a lot of reports say that this massive craft went over Arizona. It started up on the top of Arizona, then came down to Phoenix, and then went on to the lower half of Arizona. Basically, what was going on is these lights were following the energy trails. They were hitting the energy spots over there on the top of Arizona, and then they came and hit Phoenix and absorbed the energy here, and then they went on to absorb the energy on the lower half of Arizona. So yes, when we really look at this, we don't have any videos, any credible videos of anything flying over the city of Phoenix. And the only people that are saying this are really the people trying to gain money from it or trying to exploit them, and you know how stories get. Lucy broke her arm, she fell off the swing. Well, by the time it goes around the school, Lucy got beat up and she's in the hospital dying. Okay, so you know how stories get blown way out of proportion. I don't go on hearsay. I go what I can prove. And the evidence would suggest on what we can prove is the people who are out there waiting for something to happen, who did catch something that happened. And this is the reason why we have the videos today. And the things that people say that went over the valley, there's no evidence of this. I just wish somebody would have grabbed a camera. So if anything did go over the Valley of the Sun, then maybe it wasn't a spaceship, but maybe it was these entity lights, okay, that I'm going to show you right here, that I filmed going over my apartment in 2019. Now let's take a look at this real quick. Now, these are the Phoenix lights going over my apartment. Can you see that? So a lot of people would mistake this as a massive craft. They would think, oh my God, it's a big spaceship. This flew right over my apartment in 2019. And so a lot of people think, oh my God, it's a spaceship. I had a lot of people that tell me, oh dude, that's a TR-3B. No, man, no, this is not a craft. Each light is the being, is the entity, so, and if these were any kind of flares or Chinese lanterns or anything like that, they would not stay in formation. They would go away from each other. But yet these things are staying in formation. You see that? This is what we can prove on actually something, in the city of Phoenix, going over our heads. Look at this. And more just came from them. You see that? Each light is a
I've seen those before.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Orange, bright, like a wheel inside turning.
Sure. Just like Ezekiel's wheel, man.
Yep.
So yeah, this happened in 2019. This is my apartment complex where I was living at. My wife stepped outside to get something from her car, and she comes running back. Dude, there's lights out here. I grabbed my camera, boy. I started filming, man.
Great capture.
Yeah, and more kept coming. It was great. It was awesome.
As regards to the testimony that your governor in Phoenix, Fife Symington, said he witnessed the craft, saying it was about a mile wide or in length. And that he didn't want to stir up everybody because of descriptions that it was a large craft about a mile.
Yeah, let's look at his credibility. For one, he's a politician. All right.
True.
So you can't believe these guys. And if he blew his credibility when he came out on the news and made fun of it by dressing up some guy in an alien costume.
Of course.
His credibility just shot out the window. So why is he coming back saying, oh, he saw a spaceship?
10 years later, too.
Yeah, and so again, I asked him, why didn't you take a camera? He saw these things. Apparently, in his mind, he got in his truck and he chased this thing down, and he was blowing off his Secret Service people. But why couldn't you get a camera? You're following these things, they're there, but no camera. So when it comes to that guy, dude, I mean, he blew it. He blew it when he made fun of him. He should have came right out and said, look, this is what's going on. Not wait until he gets out of office and try to cover up his BS, so.
Just to confirm, Jeff, approximately how long was the sighting of the Phoenix Lights?
Oh, you saw the video there, so it wasn't that long. And I really don't think that Hellbop had anything to do with it. It was a coincidence, in my opinion.
Right.
Basically, what these things do, they follow a pattern. Okay, this is a pattern. What I learned living by South Mountain for 3 years is I learned that these things are here during the equinox, and then after the equinox, and then after the solstice. So basically, they're following the sun. When the sun gets in the right position of these energies, fault lines around the earth, whether it's fault lines, whether it's volcanoes, whether it's man-made structures such as nuclear facilities, when the sun aligns with these energy sources, it opens up a doorway. It attracts these beings to these energy spots. And so the first year that it happened, I noticed that these things were on the mountain, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and then all of a sudden here comes the equinox, or here comes the solstice, and they were gone. I didn't see them for a while, and where did they go? They followed the sun. The sun moved positions of the seasons, and they went over to Florida, or they went over there to Iraq, or they went over there to Paris, all right? And then after the equinox or after the solstice, then they would come back. So basically, they're following the suns as it aligns with the energy sources. Now, here's the diagram that I made, that I documented as I'm watching this. The first year when this happened, it was great. I was documenting them. The Indians, they made these light and shadow marker panels for the equinox and the solstice. Matter of fact, you're probably familiar with Stonehenge. During the equinox and the solstice, during the morning sunrise, the sun aligns with the two rocks. Well, it has nothing to do with the seasons. The archaeologist wants us to believe that it's time to plant corn. Bullshit. It has nothing to do with planting corn. It has everything to do with what's in the sky. They are waiting for these entities in the sky. And they learned that during certain types of seasons, they are here. And different seasons, they are gone. They are somewhere else. And this is what I documented in the 3 years that I was watching these things come. So for instance, during the winter solstice, before the 21st of the winter solstice, they were here. They were here all the way after the equinox. After the equinox, they started to come back in March, like January, February, March. Those were hot times. You know, that's the reason why the Phoenix Lights were here March 13th, is because they're always here in March, all right? They're always here during the seasons, all right? And I documented this many times before. I followed these things all over the valley, and I documented the times and seasons when they were here. And so the first year they were here, it was great. I documented. The second time, it repeated itself. The third time, it repeated itself, and that was it. That was the secret that I discovered, that they follow the sun. They follow the season. So when you see a light and shadow panel where the light and shadow is cutting through a spiral vortex door, it's telling us, dude, that it's almost time to see the spirits. And then sometimes they actually carve what you're about to see, a snake or a diamond or a crooked snake or things like that. They tell you, you know, what you're about to see, what is to come, you know, what to expect.
Do you think in other parts of the world, around the world, that there's similar activities that people can view
Yes.
that might be a little different, but in the pattern of the seasons you're saying, because I am looking at your calendar there, might be different, where doorways open a little earlier or a little later than what you've outlined there?
It's very possible because, you know, I haven't been in Iraq, you know, to document any of this. You know, I haven't been in Florida to document any of this. But talking with people who are there, you know, I got a friend of mine who's over there on the other side of the world. And, you know, whenever he starts to complain that he's not seeing them, I'm seeing him over here. And then when I start to complain that I'm not seeing him, he's seeing him over there. You know, so I think it's pretty much the same thing.
One last question, Jeff. Out of the calendar cycle of the months of the year, through your experience, two questions. It's a two-part question. First of all, do you find one month that has a higher activity than all the rest? And also, with talking the calendar, do you notice on the same date through the years of like a prevalent date in that given month that you've experienced to sort of, hey, I remember that date. Yeah, I'd seen something. It didn't have to be the same, but there was something. So again, what month you may feel has the highest number, and again, that have you noticed it growing as the years have unfolded to sometimes the same date?
I think January, February, and March are really big. I mean, those are the times.
Wow.
When, yeah, that is like the hot times. You can see them on other times in the month, also other times of the year. October seems to be really good too. October and November, but January, February, and March, that's really good. April's up there. You know, you can see a lot of them in April.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because here I see a lot of it going on. It kicks off kind of March. I've seen things, but it really seems to open the doors May, June, July, August, and October here.
Absolutely. You nailed it. That's it. That is it. Yeah, they're following the seasons, the fault lines, the energy. I would start looking to see if you have some kind of fault line. You were mentioning a ley line, same thing. You know, that's what they're after. If you have mountains around you, find out the history, find out what the Indians say about your area. Go up on the mountains, look for petroglyphs. If you find spirals and anthropomorphs, flying snakes, that's the source. That's the key. That is where they come and go from. And I would watch that area and never stop. I would continue to watch that area. And don't give up. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they're not going to show up. In order to, you know, really investigate, you have to put in, you know, a full 100%. You have to keep going out there as much as you can to make sure you don't miss anything.
Right.
Because like I said at the beginning of the show that you probably missed, like 1 week, I'd only see like maybe 1 or 2, but the next week I see like a whole bunch of them, through Monday, through the week. And then the next week I only saw like maybe 1, maybe 2, or I didn't see anything at all, and then the following week, then they would come back. So once you figure out that pattern, then you'll be able to track them down more easier. But figuring out the pattern, that's the hard part. You got to keep going out there. Once you find the source, keep watching.
Keep a journal.
And don't give up, right? Just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they're not going to show up. So you talk to them. Talk to them, man. Tell them that you want to see them.
I've had that encounter too, where they appear and you raise the camera and they disappear.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, talk to them. Let them know you're there to see them. They like that. They want to be seen. And so, yeah, as far as like anniversary dates, as far as, are we going to have another sighting March 13th? No, I can't see any proof of that. It's all a coincidence, it's just whenever they appear, it's whenever they are here, and so I don't believe that there's any anniversary celebrations that they do on the return. So
thanks for that. I appreciate your information. I've learned a few things.
Brother. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, anyway, that was great. Listen, so we've been talking for a while here. It was a fantastic interview. The only thing I got to say was it was interesting that the Phoenix lights were recorded at 3:13 a.m., right? The numerology part there.
There was a sighting at 8 and then another one at 10:30.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I thought because I seen the video, it's at 3:13 a.m., right?
No, that was March or something. No, that wasn't AM.
Oh, it's March 13th. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
March 13th. All right. Okay. That's okay. But anyway, listen, fantastic interview, Jeff. Wow. Right. And we're going to have you on again. Definitely. I thank Paul Shishi for joining us too when he did.
Thanks for having me.
That was awesome. And Jeff, like Paul Shishi is there's only 3 people I know. Well, 4 people. There's Ken Klingbeil, Paul Shishi, you, and Paranormal Sean, right? That actually hunt UFOs. And what I mean by hunt UFOs, I mean, they got their tripod out, they got their table ready, a couple cigarettes going maybe, right? And it's like pretending to fish, but they're not fishing for fish.
Sure, right.
For
That's
skyfish
exactly
up there, yeah, man, right?
That's exactly it. You're fishing, man.
Yeah. So I mean, that's cool, and I'm honored to have you on here and all that. It was great. We'll have to have you on.
It was great meeting all you guys. Thank
You
so
too,
much.
you too. It's great, my friend.
Yeah. Keep in touch, and if you get anything on film, if you see anything, email me, message me. I'm on Facebook, Jeff Woolwine, Petroglyphs in the Sky. You can find my website, petroglyphsinthesky.net. You can find me on YouTube, the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. So I'm all over the internet. Search my name on the internet. You can see all my research and findings and studies and everything I've been doing for the last 20 years. So
right on. And what was the name of your book?
The book is The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. And this is volume 1. So basically it talks about the lost history of Phoenix, Arizona. And it's told in a story, in a movie type setting. And I show the petroglyphs and I show the meaning of the petroglyphs. I talk about the tombs. I show the photographs of the tombs. I talk about the first park ranger of South Mountain. I have all the documentation in there, and it takes the reader on a magical journey through time of what Phoenix really was and how it came to be, and how the Mayans were here and what these UFOs that we see in the skies today really are. So it's a great read, and so yeah, it's great. And I'm not out for money. I don't collect any money on anything that I do. I told the publishers to give the proceeds to the book to the foster kids here in Phoenix. So I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the fame. If you can't get to the mountain on your own, then I bring the mountain to you through my book. And like I said before, don't believe me. Go out there and investigate things on your own. That's the only way you're going to find out the truth. Don't believe somebody trying to sell you a book or a movie ticket or a Hollywood, theater or anything like that. You go out there, you investigate it, do what I do, and check it out for yourself. That's the only way you're going to find out what's really here, what's real, and what's hearsay.
Right on. So listen, all the you Ascension Radio listeners, this is an amazing interview that just happened, but since you're on the radio, you couldn't see all the videos that Jeff posted, which were astronomically fantastic, man. And I suggest that you go on BitChute and look at the video again, or look at it for the first time on Uforia Chronicles BitChute channel, right? And subscribe, right? It's the only place where we have all the archives of Uforia Chronicles and much more, right? I posted a lot of other things as well too. And from the bottom of my heart, Jeff, thank you very much. Ascension Radio listeners, if you have it in your heart too, donate a couple bucks to the station to keep us alive. It's publicly funded. And Jeff, would you be willing to join us on future UFO panels?
Absolutely. You have a spot open, just give me a ring. I'll be glad to join.
Okay, and the same goes for you, Mr. Paul Shishi, as well, right? So there you go. Please still stay on the line once we close off the show. On behalf of the Uforia Chronicles Shockwave Radio, we're signing off, and have a great day or evening or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you, everybody. Have a great one.